How's it going, everyone, and welcome to another episode of No Excuses with your favorite show hosts, Ara Still.
For Narayan.
And Wallace, I'm here to bring today's news and games commentary for the week that was, such as it was. And we are all once more here together at the same time. It's
Yeah.
kind of a bit tragic that this is the exception rather than the rule these days. But
we have to adult. I don't want to adult anymore. Can we stop?
just the worst. It just never seems to pay off.
Nah,
Anyway,
it really doesn't.
if you'd like to get involved with the show, you can do so by sending us an email at noexcusesvtw@gmail.com, or you can follow us on the Twitter at noexcusesvtw, or you can join us in the Discord server, the best place to communicate with the show hosts and other listeners to the show, and you can do that by clicking on the link provided in the show description underneath the archive on YouTube.
Yes, indeed. Today we're playing Genshin again. Fern just hit world level 50, so he's doing the Ascension quest, and then he come to our world, and we
And you
can.
can experience what it's like to have enemies with 3 digits in the level line.
Yeah,
I'm going to get smushed.
yeah, we're gonna have to get you leveled up, but the plus side is you will be able to do the high level domains.
Yep. So yeah, I just hit that like right just now. So.
Oh boy, this is gonna be his first time not being the host too.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna have to only have one character. I'm gonna feel so dirty.
Yep. Thankfully, all my statues are, except for the Fontaine one, are as high a level as they can get, so they should. All right, Vol, you can go ahead and join my world, I guess. Get a bit of loading done.
Yeah.
Righto.
It never ends.
So, first up on the show this week, we have weeks. I am checking the email in real time to see if we have an email, and a little bit of news content this week from stuff in our wheelhouse from 2 of the games that we play, or one that we played, past tense. No emails.
Yes.
And
Yeah, there is a lot of other gaming news out there. I just cannot bring myself to talk about it, honestly.
It's all the most clownish shite imaginable for the most part lately.
It is. So it's just like
the number one
oopsie.
topics on my feed have been Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 and Love and Deep Space.
I
don't know what that second one is.
Yeah,
You don't want to.
Oh dear.
Yeah, you're not a 16-year-old girl.
It would be fine if it was just 16-year-old girls, because nobody expects anything useful out of 16-year-old girls. But the problem is that it's not. The problem is that it's women who never grow out of the mentality of being 16-year-old girls, but think that they have.
Oh, it's
Oh dear.
40-year-old girls that behave like they're
It's
16.
cat ladies.
Yeah.
It's cat ladies and wine aunts.
All right, you actually got to pay attention to this domain. So yeah,
You don't want to fall into the abyss.
I do not want to fall into the abyss. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So yeah, the Kingdom Come Deliverance thing I've not followed at all. I've seen it going on in the background, but I don't know the first thing about it.
There's not really much to know. It's just it's an inevitable conflict.
Yeah,
where both sides are declaring themselves to be righteous, and nobody is really listening to anybody else. And
the developer just does not know when to shut up.
Yeah, I mean, he traded very heavily on the sort of like being the sort of the blunt and gruff developer guy, but the problem is that the audience for that type of discourse is the audience he's presently attempting to alienate. So it's basically turned into a fiasco.
Yeah. So yeah, I never actually did play the original one. I just never got around to it. Apparently, it is really, really good though. Yes, you do peasanty things until you're called on to not be a peasant anymore and go and fight some lord's enemies for reasons. Oh, do I actually have the DPS to do this? Yes, there we go. Okay, domain done.
The characters that you've got scale that content so hard that if you failed, it would be embarrassing.
Yeah, well, I've only got a. If I had a fully built Mavwika, I would have just blown through that immediately.
Well,
you don't need a fully built Mavwika.
No.
I did it with Ningguang, so
they've redone it since we did it.
Well, I'm talking about the one to get up to 9. Like I did it with a launch character, is what I'm saying.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
To get to the top level, so there's no way that with a recent character you couldn't do it, get up to 7 or whatever it is.
It's just a matter of paying attention and not being bad. All right. Come on, mode.
Go turn it in, get your rewards, and then come attempt to join my world.
Yep.
Rewards from Catherine.
So, yeah. I'd also reset my commissions, so that's good. Not that it really matters very much, but anyway. So yeah, weeks. Most of my gaming this week has been still chipping away at Metaphor Red Fantasio, which, yeah, it's. Well, I knew going into this game it was just going to be Fantasy Persona, and it continues to be Fantasy Persona.
I mean, what that means has changed over time, though. Like, I like
Fantasy Persona 5.
Like as a sort of a general thematic proposition, I like Persona a lot more before 5, because 5 is clearly made for Zoomers.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
Persona. If we were talking Persona 3, that'd be one thing. If we're talking even Persona 4, that'd be one thing. But 5 has just Royal wasn't enough to fix it.
No.
And proceeding further along that arc is, that's just going to lead you to Wokesville, basically.
Yeah. And the entire narrative being slavery is just, it doesn't sit right with me.
Mm-hmm. It's not mer slavery, it's mer discrimination.
It's even worse.
It was Waitangi weekend this past week, so I've had more than enough of that.
Yeah. So yeah, I've kind of. Yep.
I was just going to complain that it's all Ari's fault. That's all.
Oh yeah,
because
I mean we go through that with
America exported their racial grievance all over the world.
Yeah, could you take that back, please?
Don't look at me. That's California.
I know it is not relevant nor welcome.
Go ask the New England states or California or Washington.
Yeah.
Not my section of the U.S. I have no jurisdiction.
Your section of the U.S. has all the black people, though.
It does, but we ain't the ones that we were fine until California politics stuck its big nose in and brought racism back as a focal point for a certain party and their obsession with it.
Yeah. So yeah, but yeah, I can get past all the discriminations part because that like good chunk of the first act and then it kind of fades off. But I'm into the home stretch now. I just got the last playable character and all of that. I suspect he might be another. Like honestly, can't even remember her damn name. Situation from Persona 5. Yeah, the last character right near the end of the game, and it's like, you serve no purpose. Haru, that's the one. You're here too late.
Yeah, she's a very likable character, but you just don't spend any time with her. So
yeah, she did get a social link, but it was kind of rushed, wasn't it?
Well, it's
oh. No, me and Vol just started talking at the exact same time, so we
probably stopped at the same time.
Yeah, and then we stopped and we both got stuck in the blue screen. The fact that you have to do it all at once, back to back, really kills the pace of her social link because those stories are not meant to be done like that.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to get the most out of them, and it just doesn't feel very good with her.
Yeah. In this case, there are 3 characters who get their social links at the same time. 3 playable characters. So I suspect it's going to be fairly rushed, but a bulk of the rest of the social links are more or less finished at this point. So I don't know.
I think Vol's. We gotta move the channel again.
Something's gone horribly wrong. Help.
Oh, that's the wrong channel. Hold on. Hang on.
We there? Uh-oh.
There we
This
go.
happens every time, but Ara still never learns. Here, we have to
There
go
we
through the
go.
debacle every time.
So yeah. Yeah, I'm enjoying the
I mean,
game.
I don't know what you want me to learn from it. That my only solution is pick a different one.
Yeah,
It's always going to
where-
be a different one to whichever one you've got selected. You can just be you can rest assured you chose wrong.
Right, metaphor. I was stuck in
Yeah.
fix the serverville.
So yeah, after you kind of hit about the halfway point, the gate kind of come off with difficulty, so it does this stupid thing where it gives you a quest to go to a tower, which is 3 freaking days of dead travel time that you are not supposed to actually do until you beat the main dungeon. But at no point does it tell you that. So if you go there early on, you can, theoretically do it, but you're going to have a bad time. Whereas you beat the main dungeon, it gives you a mechanic to turn off bad weather. So when you have bad weather in a location, the press turn system doesn't press turn. Is basically how that works. So yeah, you can just turn that off, and suddenly that dungeon becomes a whole lot less painful. But anyway, as far as the story-wise, it's kind of building up to the big climax. You have a big scene where bad guy A and bad guy B stand on stage and throw Uno reverse cards at each other for about 20 minutes. But yeah. Also, gameplay foreshadowing things like you're chasing a bad guy for most of the game. You finally confront him, and you have an incredibly underwhelming boss fight where he dies at the end. Yeah, we know how these games go. He's not dead.
You see, the thing is, though, nobody has ever said anything about this game that made it sound remotely compelling. Like, their entire marketing thrust was, oh, this is made by the same people as Persona.
Yeah.
At no point do they bother to preach the virtues of the game itself, which only leads me to believe it doesn't have any.
I mean,
basically, is discrimination bad, and people are assholes in general.
But like, what's the point? What's the point of playing it? What does it bring as an experience that makes it worth the time that you have to sink into a JRPG? Like, I played Final Fantasy. I mean, not Final Fantasy. I played Persona 5 off of the back of their reputation, and it was okay at best. The storyline was basically offensive in its triteness, but the presentation was nice. But that basically, it was spending the goodwill that the previous 2 entries had built up. It was not generating any. So at that point, the tank has bottomed out, and I'm like, and now you're trying to trade on Persona 5 in order to get me to play ReFantazio. There's nothing left in that tank. You didn't bring anything to the table in 5, so that's just not. There's not enough left. There's not enough goodwill to spend to get me to play that game. And add to the fact that nobody came out and said this is an incredible experience when it came out, so there was no way to build any hype. The whole thing is just like, oh well, it's a game that exists, I guess, and if it wasn't $130, I might pick it up at some point on a Steam sale.
Yeah. At this point, it's like I'm invested, and honestly, I can get behind the amazing race style race for the crown that they've got going on. That bit's fun. Once it stops, preaching and getting in its way. But the thing is this is based on the audience they cultivated for Persona 5, not the one they cultivated for Persona 3. So any sort of point they try to make, or any sort of philosophy or anything like that they try to argue is
It can't be deeper than a
teaspoon deep.
TikTok.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Whereas if it was like Persona 3 quality writing, then yeah, it would be getting right into the dark and grungy bits.
But this is the real reason to ban TikTok, is that it destroys people's brains.
It is pure brain rot, and not the fun kind.
I mean, I'll take some Kuru brain rot, but that has literally no substance to it.
No, it's
just a meme. That's not.
That is just a meme.
It's not like TikTok is a substitute for an internal monologue.
Yeah, so you end up with stupid shit like people doing a really awful dance with the text of their terrible political opinion pasted on over top of it.
Yeah,
And they're dancing like they've solved whatever argument they're trying to make.
I wonder if you could actually measure a significant statistical increase in clinical level narcissism in the Zoomer generation.
I could just think you could just attach that to social media as a whole, yes.
Because, like, traditionally, millennials have been viewed as the most narcissistic generation because we inherited the thinking of the boomers and because the Gen Xers didn't contribute anything. So we ended up basically having zero resources, but all of the entitlement. The thing is that's something that exists within like a pre-collapse of civilization milieu. The Zoomers were born in a mid-collapse of civilization time, so they treat the things that we recognize as lacking as normal, and which is why you can actually have you find Zoomers in the real world who think that TikTok is a compelling medium for discourse.
Not. It's even worse than Twitter was with their limited character cap.
Yeah, it is a mess. When it comes to
TikTok
games,
is fantastic for sharing memes. That's about it.
yeah. I don't even use it for that. The opossum loves TikTok, but that's because the opossum. I don't know if he knows what an internal monologue is.
I don't. I've never been to TikTok. I don't think I've ever even watched a TikTok that wasn't transplanted to Twitter.
Yeah, I've never been to TikTok. I've watched some YouTube short transplants that get linked, but I've never been to TikTok itself.
Yeah.
But
A lot of that stuff's being copied over to YouTube now anyway.
I mean, it says a lot that China banned TikTok in their own country.
Yes.
But in terms of metaphor, there's two things against it aside from the overall theming of the story, which doesn't sit good with me, especially living in the South, as I have to deal with people crying about discrimination that doesn't exist all the time, and whether or not it exists in metaphor, I'm just sick of hearing about my discrimination.
Yeah,
I hear about it all the time, and I'm sick to death of it.
I'm Australian.
I've just been through the Waitangi Day quote celebrations unquote, the photographs of which are pretty amusing because all of like the Maori ceremonial crap in that was done, like if you look carefully you can see all the Maori men have ankle bracelets on.
Oh, that's a good look.
Oh, that took a second. How'd they get out of their house for the parades then?
Well, because they would get special dispensation for this.
I see. Yeah.
But we've just done Australia Day, where the theme this year was "Shut the hell up." So at least that's progress.
At least we don't have a national holiday for it, and in fact, the national holiday in air quotes or national celebrations at a federal level have been suspended. Thank you, Musk.
Yeah.
But the other two things about it are, number one, the original writers of Personas 2, 3, and 4 aren't part of the team anymore. As far as I know, only one or two of them's left, and the rest have all gone on to greener pastures. Number two, the press turn system, if after you've played about 2 or 3 games of it, is solved. There is nothing they can do to that system to engage you that much with it. The only thing they can do is add more and more overpowered junk to make combat go faster, but make it completely trivial.
Well, they could overhaul the entire status ailment thing. They did that, and then maybe you could squeeze a bit more life out of it.
They could. They added. I'm not sure if it was in Persona 5 Royal or not. The 2 lines that everyone stands on. You have the offensive line, which is your front. You get an offense buff and a defense deep buff, and the back line, which is the opposite. You can move between them freely.
Yeah, they didn't add that, but it's much of a muchness. It's just stat manipulation.
Basically, yeah.
The system itself is a fun system the first few games you play it in, but once you've got it figured out, you've got it figured out. It's a system that you will be able to abuse relentlessly in every single game from there on, regardless of if you can make customizable Persona fusion whatever in the game lets you eventually tweak the movesets to ridiculousness. The
There was an inevitable destination to arrive at when the system is basically designed to incentivize every fight being one touch kill for you.
yeah.
You don't want any other scenario to play out ever, which is that's not your standard JRPG combat system generally. Generally speaking, you're expected to weather a certain amount of damage, and you want to bring down your opponent before you weather too much. In the case of the system that's traditionally used in Persona games, you just always kill on the first turn. And once you hit that point, it's just a matter of making sure that every conceivable situation is solved for that, which is another reason why I found Persona 5 so lackluster, was because you could do that for all the bosses too.
Yeah.
And never take any
Persona-
damage, essentially.
5 Royal added the quick reload for fights too, didn't it? Where if fight doesn't go your way, you press one button and it just sends you back to the start of the fight.
I wouldn't know. You can customize your personas so much in 5 that if you ever encounter a situation when you know the press turn system where you lose a fight, you did something horribly wrong.
I
Yeah,
don't think I lost a fight, so I wasn't aware. But
yeah,
it's too simplistic. At that point, like combat as a whole was just a diversion. It was not part of the game really. It was just a matter of going through the visual novel, and occasionally you get forced to do a puzzle or forced to press some buttons in combat. Even going in blind, you're only going to get hit about once before you figure out the gimmick.
So anyway, overall though, like I'm enjoying it, but would I call it game of the year material? No. It's just kind of vanilla popcorny.
Yeah, it's like, well, I mean, the thing is that it's trying to trade on a very storied legacy, like that level of sort of vanilla popcorn JRPG. This is what I expect from Tales.
Yeah,
Like, this is what I expect from the latest Tales game. It's not what I expect from the Persona team. I expect something thoughtful from the Persona team, and they just have not delivered in some time now.
no. And ultimately, your character's motivations all boil down to the usual thing. It's reclaim family's honor, track down a murderer, not be accused of being a murderer in one case. It's just familiar stuff. So
Well,
all you've got,
familiar stuff is fine if it's like genuinely very resonant, as opposed to just being very tired. Like every heroic epic proceeds in more or less the same way for the same reason, and people don't get tired of them. What people get tired of is direct retreads of the same thing done again.
yeah, because at that point it just becomes rote. So it's
and
not
also,
a bad.
The consumption rate of people's patience will also be higher if they feel like they're being patronized.
Yes.
The story is laughably simple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like just
Yeah, I don't feel like I've reached that point where the story is just laughably simple. It is, predictable, but it's amusing once they get out of their own damn way, and it becomes enjoyable.
The themes from Personas 2, 3, and 4 are like 2 is moving past bad choices and learning to make the best of a situation you've dug yourself into a hole with. Like that's the running theme with all the characters. They've all made terrible choices, or their actions have had consequences, intentional or not, that they now have to deal with and take responsibility for. And taking responsibility for those choices is the theming of the game. And then the third game's whole shtick is Memento Mori, and remember that you will die, and how to make the most of your life while you're still here. The fourth game is all about the importance of truth and not giving in to a comfortable lie. Like those are not the deepest themes in the world, but they're more thought-provoking than popcorn vanilla JRPG.
Well, I mean, the target audience for those games is still like teenagers and young adults, and those are the sorts of valuable morals that you need to be inculcating into a generation of young people. What's not a valuable moral is young people are always right, which is what the moral is of Persona 5.
Persona 5. Yeah, like that. I get the impression that, especially early on in Persona 5, that's not what they were originally going to go for.
I don't think they had a clue what they were doing with Persona 5 because the original
Well,
a bunch of the original staff and writers left with
yeah,
while Persona 5 was in development. So what we got was probably just people trying to come up with something to make it as marketable as possible with
and we ended
whatever
up with
they had.
the mess that was Persona 5's plot.
The impression that I got of ReFantasio from the promotion and the discourse is that this was Persona 5 if it was written by the people who wrote Persona 5 after they went to college.
Heh. Yeah,
That-
a little
that-
bit.
That's not a compliment.
So yeah, anyway. Yeah, I'm enjoying it, but it's not game of the year material. It's fine.
Yeah,
But you do have that big wall of discriminations to get over first.
I've got an intense case of being an adult, which requires me to be extremely discerning about what I waste my free time on, and I'm going to waste it on something that is not a tired retread of something I've seen multiple times before.
Mm-hmm. So to that end, the other game I played this week, it was Bears in Space, which is probably about as far away from metaphor as you can get because it's so incredibly dumb.
Why are bears in space?
Why not?
Uh-huh.
And that's basically the plot, is why not? It is a boomer shooter.
There's not much beers to eat in space normally, is there?
Nope. Except you get honey and that turns you into a super bear. So there's that.
Uh-huh.
Do bears actually eat honey? Like, is that a real world thing, or is that just a Winnie the Pooh thing? Because we don't have any bears in New Zealand, so I don't know anything about bears.
Bears will eat anything that ain't bolted down that is edible.
If
So
they can
they're
get honey,
giant
they'll eat
raccoons,
honey.
basically.
Yes, except they take the whole giant trash can with them when they leave. There are bear-proof trash containers that they sell in the mountains.
Yeah, I've seen the photos of them.
That they are.
We get dingo-proof ones.
You are supposed to bolt the stupid bear-proof trash can to the sidewalk, and the trash people will come unbolt it when they take the trash away, and then roll it back inside a secure pre-designated area.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a very silly boomer shooter. It was made by like 3 guys in, I think, Adelaide. Nobody ever talks about Adelaide.
There are people in Adelaide.
Apparently, there's 3
I
of
thought
them.
you put it on. Thought you put it on the map for decoration.
We had to put something here. Well, actually, that's kind of what Perth is. Except Perth is nice. I don't mind Perth.
Well,
Anyway,
Perth is because the country feels lopsided if there's nothing on the west coast.
Yeah, so everything's on the east, and from there is nothing. That's what Canberra thinks, at least. Anyway,
I'm having to go to a map to figure out where the fudge this is. Okay.
it's down the bottom in the bitey bit.
I have heard the name before, at least.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a fun game. It's got lots of different guns, and a lot of them once you use them up, they'll level up and grow up. Your character is a almost retired spaceman who, through hyperspace shenanigans, gets his DNA merged. I'm going to put that in giant quotes with a bear. I'm 90% sure, because you never actually see it, that he's just riding on the bear's shoulders or something.
Uh-huh.
The bear is fully voiced, and because of it's basically only being 3 guys, the voice they assigned to her is well, you guys watched Rocko's Modern Life, right?
Not intentionally, but it was on the television.
Yeah.
30 years ago.
Yeah. There's a couple of distinctive voices. In this case, it's Edna Bighead.
I don't know who that is.
Yeah, that was not ringing a bell.
The thirsty neighbor.
Still not ringing a bell. I did not actively watch Rocco. It was on TV.
The thing is that Rocco is considered to be a cultural broadside against Australia by Australians, so they actually remember it.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I remember it being on the television, but I did not ever actively go out of my way to watch it. It may roll on occasionally, but I never actively watched it.
It was Nickelodeon at their weirdest. It didn't quite hit the levels of disturbing that Ren and Stimpy did, but it got close.
It definitely had the writer is definitely a pedophile or something vibes to it.
Or something. So yeah, the bear sounds like, instead of like a bear who talks, it sounds like somebody's wine aunt who smokes 3 packs a day. So, but beyond that, it is just dumb fun. Very silly, very light,
Bears.
moderately decent difficulty. I don't mind it.
Bears. Space.
In space. Yeah. It's just dumb, and I love it. So if you're looking for a boomer shooter, there you go. Yeah, bears in space.
I see. I'm trying to Google bears in space.
Look on Steam, it's a bit easier.
Oh,
Oh, yes.
no, I just saw the okay. Do they have a picture that's better than that one?
I don't like the sound of that.
Hang on.
What have you done? What have you done?
It's trying to autoplay. Rawr.
Oh, that's never good. That's never good.
What does Bears in Space ask for my birthday?
I think because somebody talked about butts at one point in it. The Steam age gating is a bit weird lately.
That'll work.
There are 3 arms on the screenshot.
Yeah, don't ask questions. That's your basic gun. That's what it fully upgrades to. You just get more of them.
And it looks like the spaceship from Futurama.
Yep. Yeah. The whole game is kind of designed to look cheap and dodgy because it's going for that, ridiculous retro sci-fi look. So everything looks like it's made of cardboard.
I see.
So yeah, it's a fun game. I recommend it. And yeah, I really do enjoy just the ridiculous amount of weapons they have in there. And some of them, like, you've got your standard machine gun, pistol, shotgun, or that sort of thing. And then you've got things like the anvil launcher, because, worked good enough for Wile E. Coyote, I guess.
Okay, so this is clearly designed to be a comedy game, but is it funny? That's the question.
It's maybe Zoomer humor. No, it's not quite that bad. It's amusing in places.
Here's a
know,
better
on a scale of like Rick and Morty to Blazing Saddles. Where does it fall?
Oh, I really do not like the Rick and Morty end.
Here's
probably about the halfway point.
Here's a better question: is the developer clearly just having fun making the game?
Absolutely yes.
Okay. That'll carry it, even if the jokes themselves fall flat.
Yeah, there's a bunch in
there. I'm not as
there.
confident as Ari on that. I think that lots of Zoomers would testify that they had fun watching Rick and Morty. I don't think it's true.
No, they're lying. There is, however, because the developers are our generation, there's some like memes and references and stuff that pops up. It's like, holy shit, I'm old.
Like Dancing
when
Baby?
They're referencing characters that were met on Australian TV during the 90s.
Yeah, we talking like Thundercats references with, Dancing Baby, or we like it Velociraptor Nancat meme tier?
Keep going. Keep going back.
Oh no, that was in the 90s already with
Dancing Baby was kind of the end of the 90s, yeah. So like we're talking even in some cases like characters on TV from the 80s.
Thundercats, Transformers.
No, Australian characters.
Samurai Pizza Cats.
As I keep bringing up, the only thing that ever comes to mind for me when you say Australian television is Crockadoo.
Yeah, that's not our brightest moment. And also, a lot of those cartoons that we think of were like Australian made were actually made in Canada.
Yeah, they were funded by your tax dollars, so
they were. So yeah, dumb game, and I love it. So I recommend it. Just pure dumbness.
I see.
So that's basically been my week. Didn't really watch any anime. I'm thinking I might do a run through Fury again because I did. I tried to watch season 2 after the big hiatus after the first season, and it doesn't flow.
There's no payoff. Like you don't go into it expecting anything out of it, other than the most low rent entertainment possible. That's why I watch it. That's why I have it on Blu-ray.
Yeah. So yeah, it's something dumb
It's-
and enjoyable to watch.
It has all the substance and nutrition of candy floss.
Yep. But sometimes that's exactly what you want. So yeah, but yeah, I think if I watch it from the beginning, it'll just flow better into season 2. Because going to season 2 after a big gap, it's a bit hard.
If a new season for a show's coming out that I'm actively watching, sometimes what I'll do is I'll boot up a game where I don't have to read anything, and in place of my podcast or audiobook, I'll just turn the show's previous season on the other monitor and half watch it and mostly listen to it, so I can get a recap.
Just to get back up to speed.
Yeah, so I can remember what the heck's going on. Might be a
I'm
route
too
worth
married
going.
to the idea of using Japanese dubs to do that strategy myself. Like I've reached the point where it's pretty rare that I would be even willing to watch it using an English dub, rather than just not watch it at all, because so few of them are any good.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the problem is you can't really second monitor anything you need to use subtitles for.
Yeah, I mean, I took a punt at trying to improve my knowledge of Japanese vocabulary using Duolingo, widely acknowledged as the worst way of doing that. But it kept trying to teach me woke phrases, so I got sick of it and stopped.
Yeah, I tried Duolingo for a while, and it was trying to teach words, and then it would just do random word salad sentences that really made no sense.
After I noticed the really really ridiculous high rate of men with boyfriends and men wearing skirts, it was like, you know what? I think I've had enough of this. Like I'm never going to talk about men wearing skirts. That's not a thing.
Scotland would like to know your location. But
The men of Scotland wear kilts, they don't wear skirts.
there you go.
You can hear them coming from a mile away too. They got them bagpipes.
You can. But yeah, it's like, especially when you got a complex language, well, basically anything Asian, really, how they got a completely different way of doing things. Duolingo just does not explain things.
Yeah, their ability to convey grammar as opposed to just firing vocab at you is basically nil.
Yeah, like if you want something that's basically just going to be used as a flashcard system, I think it'd be great for that.
And apparently there are actually really good flashcard systems on the internet with worse PR than Duolingo has. And of course,
Okay.
Duolingo, you can find out about these things if you go onto discussion forums and that. Apparently, I've seen sort of like the overflow corollary discussion on the topic because all of them hate Duolingo because Duolingo is the delusion of learning another language, enhanced by their streak systems and things, rather than an actual progress towards learning another language.
Yeah. You could probably use it if you're going for something with a similar route to English, like if you're going for German or something like that. But anything beyond that,
I tried their Latin course and it's also no good.
Yeah.
Like, it's true that I don't really want to learn any conversational Latin, but because I'm only interested in it for ecclesiastical purposes, and I guess reading the classics at a pinch. But and I already know some Latin because I spent 5 years studying it in school. But its way of teaching is basically worthless. You're not going to learn what you need to know.
Yeah. Why
You would be
is...
better off just sitting down with a Latin grammar text and a Latin dictionary and a copy of the Aeneid and just brute forcing your way through.
Yeah. So yeah, there's better tools out there, and honestly, if I ever do a run trip over to Japan, I'll probably just find a proper class and attend that, just to learn enough to get by. Because yeah, Duolingo ain't gonna do it. I will give them one credit, is that they are leaning on the duo being a homicidal maniac meme a lot.
Ow.
So at least their ads on YouTube are fun.
Everybody fears the owl.
They've got a whole series of Duolingo on Ice videos where they're basically singing things like Spanish or Vanish.
Let's see.
So props for that, but your service is not really that great.
Well, it's designed to addict and exploit people. It's not really designed to teach you a language. That's sort of the problem.
Yeah, at best it's a supplement.
All you need to know is that Ari's sister thinks that she has brilliant Spanish skills as a result of Duolingo.
Mm-hmm.
Oh dear.
It has been a long time since I've had to actively use any Spanish, and it fades more and more by the day, but I'm confident I know more than she does, and she has spent hours on Duolingo in Spanish. And days of playtime. But yeah. Also, get in my world, Fern.
I'm trying, but it doesn't seem to want to let me, because I'm at world level 7. How do I get up to level 8?
Oh, is it? I thought you were going to 8 from 7.
Level 50 is level 7.
When is level 8? 55?
Level 55.
Well,
that's poopy.
Yeah, I thought it was 50.
Now, really, Hoyo, can you just, take away the barriers stopping people from playing together?
Oh, we can come to your world and do stuff then. That
Yeah.
I think that the ship has sailed on preventing like people from using overpowered assistants to get through things.
It really has.
If you have recent characters, you might as well be 10 or 20 levels higher than launch characters. That's just the way 5 years of power creep has gone.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, I'm going to leave my week at that. Vor, what you been doing?
Not a lot. So yeah, it was Waitangi weekend. Well, Waitangi Day fell in the middle of the week, which is a huge pain in the butt from a production perspective. And it means I'm going to have another week of the accountants breathing down my neck about the budget, because middle of week public holidays are as good as losing a quarter of your sales in the month. I don't know why it always works out that way, but it is. It's very, very bizarre, but it is the way it is. At any rate, what did I do? Okay, so dialing back to last week, I have completed reading through the finale, basically, of the whatchamacallit, the Foreclosure Task Force. Hold on, this is not going to be synergetic at all. I need to find a different character. Yes. No, we've got Dendros. I can't use that.
All the Geo ladies. We got Bennett.
All the Geo ladies. We could go with all the Geo ladies.
We do have Geo ladies.
If Bennett keeps his pyro application up, then, or I could just be lazy. That's also an option.
That is also an option.
But yeah. So I finished the Foreclosure Task Force storyline. So I almost feel like it's sort of hard to rate in some way, because I don't have a good grasp of I don't really have a good grasp for the whole flow of the story because it was released in such an extremely piecemeal fashion. Um, uh, the beginning of it dragged, and it dragged largely because of pacing issues. That it was almost felt like they didn't really know exactly what they wanted to do, what they wanted to say, or where they wanted to go. But it seemed to sort of, by the back end, kind of find its feet to some extent. It felt a lot less like it was just kind of lost, and it did come to a conclusion that was reasonably satisfying, and it brought together a bunch of plot threads from the other. Do I need anything from here? I don't even know what this is actually.
We're doing kindlings.
Yeah, well, that's probably not worth it. I'll go do it again if I need kindlings rather than do it at lower difficulty. But yeah, the I felt like it came together really well in the end. It's just let down by the front half basically being a bit confusing, but maybe it doesn't actually read that way if you have the opportunity to read it all at once. So at some point I might go through it again just to find out if it actually just kind of works better under ideal circumstances compared to the ones that I actually read it under, I suppose you could say. They have really progressed in terms of like their technical aspects of the storytelling. Like there's a lot more polish. They've used combat sequences as much better storytelling vectors, and they even have in-engine animated sequences in a couple of places as well. The whole thing is put together very well, like as an evolution from the original storytelling in terms of like raw technical input. It's definitely a significant improvement, and it's the story gave off a few odd vibes in a sense. Like it's clearly building on the idea that basically Foreclosure Task Force, even if you thought that it was resolved in the past, it was never really resolved because you didn't deal with any of the underlying factors. You just dealt with the superficial ones, and the result of it is basically everything falling apart because everybody had just assumed that the problem was solved, and that it works okay. It works okay. It's just that they spend a lot of time laboring the point. I think it would have worked a lot better if the temporal gap was not quite so large, but for plot reasons, it kind of has to be. But yeah, it basically is a story that's riddled with little problems that build up, rather than having like major problems that undermine the entire story. There's just a lot of things that contribute to making it drag a bit more than it should, or making things make a little bit less sense than they should, or the behavior of characters seems a little bit... Well, a lot of the behavior of the characters starts to make sense when you remember they're actually teenagers, so they're not going to behave rationally sometimes. They're just going to react on emotion and not learn lessons that they're supposed to learn sometimes. And the other characters point this out on the regular when somebody's acting out of just being immature. But yeah, they pull a lot of plot threads together. They also appear to kind of sever some, and deliberately and on purpose. Like there's this dangling plot thread from, I think, the back end of Eden Treaty 4 about Kuzunoha and the effect of the chroma on things, and whether or not you can actually resolve the situation where somebody has been tainted by the chroma, and if there's any way back, and if there's any way to bring back somebody like that, and so on. And they have a sort of a strange scene near the end of Foreclosure Task Force where Sensei just resolves, I'm just going to stop chasing Kuzunoha now because it's not the appropriate thing to do to keep pursuing the pipe dream on the level of resurrecting the dead, when instead my efforts are better spent helping those who are actually around in front of me. Which pretty much just leaves that plot dead in the water. But it could be because the only people who knew where that plot was going were the people who were involved in the industrial dispute that they had and departed the company. Because it did seem like a bit of an odd. Because I mean, we saw this in World of Warcraft, right? Like the reason why Shadowlands, well, one of the many reasons why Shadowlands was such a clown show was that the one guy who actually knew where the story was supposed to go left in disgrace.
Yes. There's a lot of that going on in Blizzard. Still is. So much disgrace. But yeah, it's never a good thing when you lose half your team, but it wouldn't be a bad idea to have someone with, who knows what this plot is actually doing stick around and not just fire them for no reason.
Well, they weren't fired in Blue Archive's case.
No, they weren't.
They actually undertook a project to attempt to undermine the development team so that they could release a competing product.
Oh, that's right. That was Blue Archive, right?
And it all came a cropper because none of them have any project management ability.
Mm-hmm.
So when they started trying to build their competitor, nothing got done. Like it was almost like a comedic situation in some sense. I mean, it put the game and the fan community and a lot of people's livelihoods at risk, but it was just sort of an absurdity. Their coup was planned so poorly that they couldn't actually follow through on anything. But yeah. So overall, I think that story probably hangs together quite well, but it must be read at the end. I think you could probably read it before the Hyakuyaku chapter, maybe. But even that, I probably wouldn't risk it in case there was something about Kuzunoha in there that sort of lends gravity to the decision to abandon searching for her. Although I don't really think that the story wasn't really about that. It was about something else. But yeah, I think that it is sort of like a necessary denouement to the Foreclosure Task Force story, but I think that it was scaled up a bit too much. You spend a little bit too much time navel gazing. I think that it should have been more of the scope of Eden Treaty 4, because Eden Treaty 4 is actually a really good standalone story within the context of the Eden Treaty arc that ties up all of the detritus left behind by Eden Treaty 3, which is sort of like the real climax, and then sort of ties it into the broader myth arc afterwards. I feel like that's the sort of scope that Foreclosure Task Force 3 should have had, rather than having this sprawling thing riddled with sort of like out of chronological order flashbacks. Like they all provide useful information, but I feel like there's like a good 30% too many. Like there's a leaner, tighter way of telling the story, and it feels like padding in order to make it take longer to deploy for content cadence reasons. So basically, FGO syndrome.
Yeah.
FGO is getting ready to move into FGO Global is getting ready to move into the order call, aka order stall period of its life. So I haven't gone back to it yet, even though I really would like to see the way that story all shakes down as far as the end of the Lost Belts is concerned. But it's just I've sort of fallen off the train now, and going back to it would be kind of tough. So yeah, and I'm sure the fights are outrageously difficult for somebody who's skipped all of the characters for the last 2 years or whatever. But,
Yeah.
But yeah, I probably will go back at some point because I want to know how Lost Belt ends. But I can't imagine going back for Order Store when basically everybody just says it's just not worth it. But yeah, so Blue Archive, new chapter, it ended well, and I think that it's probably if you don't have the cliffhangers that I had, it's probably sufficient to forgive them for how long it took if you read it all in one go at the end. Deploying it piecemeal, I think, was a very content cadence focused decision and does not enhance the storytelling at all. Like there are some stories where the story is enhanced by having beats in between major events. This one is not one of those. This one was spaced out simply to make it take longer to deploy. But the overall story wasn't too bad. It's definitely not the worst.
Going back into the domain, by the way, all those kindlings I just got, I just fed them all to Shalonen.
A lot of paper to eat.
She does eat a lot of books.
Speaking of Blue Archive, I got Reese's Puffs.
Clear.
Finally.
I didn't even get a single purple envelope for the entirety of the free pulls. Not a one.
I got Reese's Puffs.
Exactly in line with my my historical fortunes in Blue Archive, where I have sparked virtually everything that I've ever pulled.
Beat 'em up, beat 'em up, beat 'em up, beat 'em up.
There's probably one or two exceptions, but not very many. But yeah, unfortunately, she's not very good. So I know you pulled her for the memes, but she's not very good.
Oh, that went quick.
Else?
Oh, if you wanted to go really quick, if speed is your concern, me and Vol can accommodate.
I have a lot of books to grind, a lot of books
I hit
to
the
eat.
wrong button, and I spent a condensed resin. I hate
right.
to do this to you guys, but my stomach is suddenly very, very upset with me.
All right.
I don't know why. So you may have to divert into Ari's week for a bit while I try and tame it.
All right.
Oh dear.
All right, leave the domain for now. Yeah. All right. Taking a sidetrack. So, the one thing, and we'll do a bit of an interim filler here for the moment. What I meant by we can make it go fast is I have a C1 motorbike and he has a C2 sit lolly. You have not leveled your Mavoika. These are fire enemies. My Mualani nominally has a much better elemental advantage on them. They have much lower hydro res. However, Mavlika does so much gosh dang damage that it just doesn't matter.
Lizard.
Oh, I picked up the lizard.
Oh, you picked up the lizard. Thief! Lizard thief. Yeah. Like, that's kind of the reason I don't really want to put Mavwika on the front line, is because she's, she's an Archon. She's kind of busted by inherent nature.
Well, you are not at a point in your world yet where world combat already has become trivial, no matter what you do.
Yeah.
Barring an enemy having a special mechanic that mandates or vastly prefers a type of character I don't have, which offhand I can't think of any. World combat is just whatever, and so
I can still get smushed.
Yeah, Mavwika being able to motorbike down stuff just makes my grind experience faster and makes it feasible to do things like boss domains or your daily hits up with the ley lines or the domains way faster, especially when I want to try and do it in 3 Hoyo games.
Yeah.
But she just does so much damage. If speed is your concern at any point and you just want to farm something fast, having the Pocket Mavwika to make it go fast is handy. However, that's only if you do want the world to maintain any kind of challenge. Anytime one of these busted characters comes out, you need to temper yourself. in the overworld and not use them. And if you can't do that, probably best just not to gear her up yet.
Yeah.
But
Even with a half-built fire application, she's already making a difference on the back line.
yeah, like it does not matter where you put her, she will be ridiculous.
Mm.
And the
Yeah.
second you push her ultimate button, everything dies.
Yeah, I do not press her ultimate button. I don't need to press her ultimate button. Partly because just having her flamethrower is enough, but also because she just meshes so well with Kniech.
Well, the thing is, she will make the Kniech part almost redundant with her ultimate because it will just come out and do something.
Yeah.
Even if you just put her away, she still feeds a damage buff to everybody while her ult's going if she's not on field.
She do. She's kind of nuts.
Yeah. But yeah. It's crazy. So my week, I guess we can talk about some of the VR stuff since that's more of a you and me thing.
Well, yeah, actually, that is one thing I did do this week that I didn't mention during the week is I did order my Quest 3.
Yes.
I got some really good news, and I need to blow off some steam, so I'm going to make a terrible financial decision.
Oh. What are you going to do?
Well, I already done it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So, yeah.
I thought you were saying that was the future tense. I'm like, oh no. But yeah.
Okay,
so,
I'm going to stop playing with this thing because why?
Oh, did you fight the boss?
Yeah, I got a boss up here because he's sitting on a treasure chest. Just come and bop it because I'm running out of health. The sort of cat thing. That's the thing coming into co-op.
Oh, that's not a boss.
I have a fort. No, it's a mini boss.
No, it's not.
Call it.
It's just a regular enemy.
He's a butthole, is what he is.
Yeah.
Oops. Bye, Bennett. So yeah, this is one of those examples of things that can still squish me, but it's also something I tend not to have too much of an issue with in single player.
You are entering a new world level set as well, so everything's 10 levels higher.
Also that. And I just got bopped right that last second. That was rude. Very, very rude.
Yeah, generally with those, you want to hit up the statue. Generally with those, you want to bop them before they put the shield up.
Yeah.
If you can't do that, then you want to have your party able to deal with the shield. I think Pyro actually can burn that shield, but there might be something better. But I'm not sure how Dendro shields work. Anyway, VR.
Yeah.
So I've been in VR for a while. You got a VR headset?
I don't yet. It's at earliest it'll arrive tomorrow, but we're currently entered the monsoon season here now. So yeah, for all I know, this time tomorrow I could be trapped on my own little island.
Yeah. So
that's kind of how Inland Australia do.
You got the Boba headset with the battery pack on it?
I did.
And you got the headphone itself.
Oh,
you're lagging like a monster. I see you running in place.
Yeah, my weapon stayed put, and my character he's just running off into the horizon.
Yeah.
And you are flying.
Yeah.
So this is interesting. I might just
It does this sometimes. Just let it catch up.
All right. I was going to just kick out of co-op mode and see if that fixed it, but I'm just going to watch the weirdness. And now the world is unloading because the game thinks my character is in the next continent over.
Oh yeah, there we go. Now I'm auto walking.
There we go.
Okay, it's a server issue thing on there, and just let it go. It'll fix itself.
Where am I?
This is quite funny. Mavlik is still walking, but my camera has not followed her.
Okay. Oh, you were lagging too. All right.
Yeah, it's on the server's end, so it'll catch back up.
I am. Apparently, I walked through a wall somewhere, and now I'm way over here.
Yeah, I'm still going.
It also killed Kniech.
Oh, there we go. Okay, it got back up.
Give me some statue juice.
So yeah, you got the head strap with the battery. That's incredibly handy.
Yep, and the base Quest 3, which comes with Batman, and because we did the referral, also 30 Zuckbucks.
Yep, and those 30 ZUC bucks should go to Virtual Desktop.
Yes. Like I
Um,
looked into other options, like Steam Link is
No.
it's there.
I'm here to tell you from experience, there's nothing that's even close to Virtual Desktop.
Yeah, and that's basically what everybody else says as well. It's like no, just skip all of that and go straight to Virtual Desktop.
MetaQuest Link, no, don't do it. It's built in the headset. It's terrible.
It's
no.
bad.
Steam Link with any headset that isn't the Valve Index, no, don't do it. It's terrible.
Yeah.
Just use Virtual Desktop. They have ironed out as many of the bumps as possible. All you have is a bit of a setup phase, and I can help you with that.
Yep.
Actually, Ibu can help you even more because he's better with that kind of stuff. So
it looks actually fairly self-explanatory for the most part.
There are quirks.
Isn't there always?
Yeah, there are quirks that, like for instance, I had to set Discord to my default sound devices again and do some sound device jiggering so that when Virtual Desktop opens, all I have to do is open sounds, enable Virtual Desktop's fake input, which is the headset input, and I enable that and switch that default device, and Discord will switch to Virtual Desktop for my input and my output. Now, something I found: you do not actually need earbuds or a headset while in virtual world.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm been able to do it without any echo, just from sound come through the headset. That thing just has really good noise cancellation, that kind of thing.
Okay. So it's got little speakers in the straps.
Yeah, there's speakers in the headset.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't need earbuds or headphones. But
my previous versions of the Meta Quest and the Oculus before that, they were not very great.
Oh, I accidentally entered the Rift because I'm weaker.
Oh, you just jumped into the wall.
Yeah. Sorry. There we go. So yeah. Other than oh, where was I going? I got distracted by the wall hole.
Yeah.
The headphones in the thing, right? So yeah, it's got speakers in the headset, and these work just fine for most purposes. Unless you're a major sound quality aficionado, they should be perfectly fine.
I've been using the same set of speakers for my PC for about 25 years at this point.
Yeah, and you should be able to route Discord and your microphone. Yeah, you should be able to tell it to pick up the microphone and the speakers from the headset and have it just play sound through that.
Yeah.
You sat here unlocking this precious chest and you're not even going to go open it.
I'm trying to pick up stuff, but there's a cooking pot here.
But yeah, so you should be good there. The next upgrade I would look at getting, other than games, just for video game console.
You do.
Hand straps replacements are very handy to have. The little wrist tie is flimsy, right, and it leads to awkward situations of your hand floating away off into the ether. Make sure you turn off hand tracking inside of it, which is lets you use your hands without the controllers to control stuff. This is very finicky, and every time you tap your controllers together, it will enable it, even if you're in a game. And this is a problem.
Oh, that's annoying.
Yeah, so be sure you turn that off. And one of the reasons I like the hand straps with the Velcro so much is it makes it much quicker to get the dumb things on without having to futz with the wrist. When you're actually playing, something that you're gonna have to be sure you do after the last update. That for some reason the last update has made the recommendation that your room be well lit no longer an option.
Okay.
You need to light your room up.
That's not a problem.
Yeah, and so turn your lights on. Make sure they're bright and the control. See, otherwise you will get jelly tracking, is what we've been calling it. So me and Ibu have been playing Walkabout Mini Golf a lot, and in that game you actually only use one controller. It's a single controller game, so its controls are a little awkward compared to most VR games at first. It takes a bit of getting used to. Why?
Why did I do that? I don't know. I do dumb things sometimes.
But yeah, jelly tracking is like we'll be holding the putter, and if we cast too much of a shadow on our hands in our room after the new update, we get a jelly hand where there's a significant delay in our hand motion and swinging the putter. This is a
Right.
This is a problem in mini golf. So make sure your room is well lit.
Alrighty.
The other thing, the only other thing worth noting, hand straps work really well for things like mini golf, Batman, etc. Because you don't have to worry about letting your grip loose; they'll just stay in the same spot. You don't have to fish the controller back out and put it back in your hand. Your hand doesn't fly off into space when it gets disjointed because you're letting the controller dangle to grab something. Your hand,
Yep.
your fingers are still usually free enough to be able to grab like a handle on a water bottle or a vape and stuff.
Yeah. Actually, to that end, there was one option that I needed to look into, which was hand pass through, where basically it turns off the VR around your hands in certain circumstances, so you can kind of look down and see what you're actually doing.
There are various pass-through options. The best one you'll find every game, if you've never set up a VR headset before, the very first thing you'll do when you load up an immersive experience is it'll make you make a cage.
Okay.
You draw a cage around the floor. You set the floor level you set it to room scale, even if your room isn't very big, and you tap the right controller on the floor to set the floor level. Stand back up, hit next, and you draw on the ground to draw a cage. And you draw the cage around you to set your boundary. You can let some things in your cage, okay? Like I let an ottoman in my cage, so I have a spot to sit down, and I let the laundry pile in my cage because if I bump into that, it's not going to hurt. Just to give myself a bit of extra room. And after you've got the cage set up, to enable pass through, just walk out of your cage or double tap the hole on the side of the headset to turn on pass through, and it'll pause whatever you're doing and pass through.
Okay, that's convenient then.
Yeah, so you don't really need to go too overboard with the pass through options. They really get kind of wacky. The only issue with it, if you decide to put furniture inside your cage, is that furniture needs to never move. Otherwise, it won't know where you are, and your cage will go teleporting off into the ether, and you'll need to redraw your cage.
Joy. Yeah, I don't have a whole lot of space for a cage, so unfortunately, it does mean the dog bed is going to have to move.
Well,
But,
it's
yeah,
okay
I'll
as long
make
as
it work.
as long as you're not going to trip on it and it's not going to hurt. You can have whatever the heck you want in your cage.
Oh yeah, I am absolutely going to trip on that thing.
Yeah. So that's how the cage works. If you do not have if you have one hand in your house without spending money, even better. Look for a rug, a small rug,
Yeah, a small rug actually would work.
and make sure you're wearing sock or bare feet, and put it in the center of your play space. And you can use the rug to orient yourself with your feet without having to look underneath the nose guard of the thing or lift it up to see where you're at or turn on pass through. I have a workout mat up against one wall that stretches out a bit that goes into the play area, and a rug that I roll my chair around for my desk.
Yeah, actually.
So
Yeah, that might work.
I know how I'm oriented just based on where the foam is for the workout mat and the rug for the computer mat. This way I don't have to do any looking around. So that's a recommendation. Better hand straps that made it with a proper Velcro on them, just to make getting out of VR faster and getting hand things on and off better. Because especially if you need to drop the VR and go do something because somebody's yelling at you, it takes a bit to get them wrist straps off.
Yeah.
You have to do the uncinching and roll it off your wrist, etc. Another thing with VR, with Oculus tracking, roll up your sleeves.
Okay.
It's got IR sensors inside the controller, and long sleeves will interfere with it.
That's right. I never wear the long sleeves. It's too damn hot.
I am in the South where it is always hot and still wear long sleeves. Because I'm always cold. But yeah, I had to do that. What else? Other than the hand straps, you can get a charger and a second battery for the headset if you want. Although more than 4 hours of play, especially when you're first starting VR, is going to be excessive. Um,
Yeah,
I doubt you're going to go beyond 4 to 5 hours of play per session without needing
not initially.
without needing a relatively long break, especially if you don't stand up for most games. Or
Yeah.
rather, if you do stand up for most games, even if you are not sedative, but if you like move around, like I did, you're not totally stuck in your chair all the time. Just some of the games asking you to move as much as they do will wear you out.
Yes.
Uh, Things like Beat Saber, or even some of the shooters that require a whole lot of upper body twisting and lateral movement of your torso to dodge stuff or bend up and down. That stuff's going to wear you out. So you'll have to build up a little bit of stamina to it. It doesn't take that long, I found.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
so you
Some
probably
games, like, it looks like I could probably sit there and just play them for hours if I wouldn't get bored. Like, the games like Elite Dangerous, you're not really moving a whole lot.
yeah.
You're
A,
basically in a spaceship cockpit for the whole thing.
a bunch of games do have sit down mode. In general, I don't recommend sit down mode for most games unless you are just your legs are jelly that day. Because the game will always work better in stand up mode. Like don't know if you had my stream open before the show, where I was playing Vertigo 2.
I missed that, unfortunately.
Okay, so like I had a shotgun that I turned off the automatic upgrade I had just to play with the pump action. Some I like the pump action feel of the shotgun.
Yep.
And when you're sitting down, pumping that thing is hard, really hard. Never mind aiming it because it's so big and you got to hold your hands so far apart. When you're standing up, though, the natural length of your arms is able to be used better, and you can hold it out more cleanly in front of you because you don't have the bent over hunch you'll be doing.
Yep.
And you can actually use the recoil of the shotgun to cock itself.
Okay. That's convenient.
If you hold it just right, you can have it cock itself.
Can I stand on this guy's head? I can stand on his back.
He was in the story when you rode on his head.
Yeah.
Kachina takes you for a ride on one when you first get to Netland. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff in VR that'll be fun to learn and go through. The whole experience of finding stuff out like that in VR and experimenting with what works for you, I find is a really enjoyable part of it. Because
yeah, it does seem like it's the sort of thing that there is no such thing as a one size fits all solution for it.
No, there's just general. I know this was a bad idea because I did it, but beyond that, I can't tell you what's going to work best for you. There are some general attachments and things that are very handy to have, like the hand straps, the replacement head strap with the battery on it, and setting yourself up for full retard wireless. But anything beyond that is just whatever you got the Dosh for and you think works for you or sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, I did find a few rules of thumb. One was, of course, well-lit room, clear space, and all that. Another good one was never play Skyrim VR vanilla.
Oh yeah, don't buy it either from Steam because it never goes on sale and is always $40.
It is always $40. I've already got it. I don't know when I got it.
It was in some packages for Bethesda scattered around. I did not have it. I did not have it or Fallout.
Yeah, Humble Bundle's done it before too, where it's been kind of thrown in with a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah, it likes to make its way into extra packages. It does not ever make itself rawly on sale on Steam that I've seen.
Yeah.
But I got both it and Fallout 4 for $15 on a bundle deal because that was the cheapest I ever saw them together.
Yeah, but apparently, like Skyrim VR on its own is bad.
Oh yeah,
and it's just a terrible experience all around.
It's comically awful how bad it is, and as usual with Bethesda games, modders fixed it.
Modders fixed it. And I've found a couple of interesting mod packs. I'm going to need to sit down and actually go through them, figure out what's in them all. But they make the game just look very, very crisp and immersive and beautiful.
Make your hands work.
make your hands work. You can actually touch people, and you can slap passers-by if you so choose.
Actually pick up stuff and use it in the world, redo the combat system so that you're not the base game Skyrim VR combat system is so bad that you can just stick the tip of your sword in somebody and do a little wrist waggle to do a billion damage per second.
That's really dumb.
Yeah,
But as bad as that is, apparently Fallout VR is even worse, where it works, and that's it.
yeah. No.
Technically it works.
No, Todd dropped the ball on those. I've only seen them secondhand. I've never booted them to play them. Ibu's got some stories with it. You can ask him for good playability, good playability mod set for stuff that make it better, because he's actually gone through Skyrim VR.
Yeah, I did find one mod pack actually, which is like the absolute top of the line graphical mods, lights, shaders, as well as an AI in there, so characters react when you bitch slap them. But the problem is, it looks like it's going to make basically any computer melt. So there's that.
Yeah, I'd be careful with the upscale and stuff. VR is very demanding on your system.
Yeah, and when you get big time shaders and stuff added in on top of that, it's going to make GPUs cry.
Yeah, because you got to remember with VR, you are functionally running 2 copies of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Like
technically 3, because sometimes it can output to the monitor as well.
It will always have a preview window on the screen because it needs a window open in Windows.
Yeah.
So almost every game will have a preview window, but this window is just mirrored in your left eye. Usually your left
okay.
one.
So it's just mirrored.
Yeah, the one on screen is actually the mirrored one. It actually sends it to your left eye first.
Right.
But you have to run functionally two copies of the game side by side, and the extra work the VR has to do to sync the images so that you get the proper perspective of depth is very intensive on GPUs. So you don't want to go overboard with things like shaders and shadows and stuff, and it's gonna be a mess. The cards you have, Ibu had so many shoes with it. Just little baby shoes that he actually switched to an NVIDIA card.
Yee. All right, I'll give that a go. If they've fixed them, great. If they haven't, then might be out for more bad financial decisions.
Yeah, that, or you can. He had to roll it back to an old driver.
Yep.
You can ask him which one he did, because he had the exact same cards you do.
Yeah, the problem is you've got especially with AMD cards, you've got new games coming out which are making use of stuff that isn't in those old drivers.
Yeah. Well, most VR games are in a they're playing catch up in terms of visual tech wise. Like I think Metro Awakening is probably the only one we got that's really out there and going to blow you away.
And out of the box, at least. Yeah.
Yeah. And Half-Life Alyx has some mods that can make it come close, and the base game doesn't look bad. But
no,
but
it is on the source engine after all, though, so it is going to be a bit. Nah.
Well, remember how when you first played Half-Life 2?
How it looked fantastic in the day.
Yeah, remember how you could pick up boxes and this was revolutionary?
Where the game had physics.
Now give yourself hands when you do that.
Yeah.
In the Source 2 engine. And you get that same kind of new feeling when you're going through the game.
Whoa.
Yeah.
There's also a Steam VR experience. Not Steam, sorry, a Portal VR experience. It's not, you're not actually playing with portals, although I think there's a mod for Portal 2 that lets you play it like that.
I found...
But it's basically just fart-assing around in Aperture's labs.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff like that on Steam VR. That are basically
a lot of little experimental stuff.
Yeah, lots of toys.
Yes.
The real trick with VR is discerning game from toy or game from sandbox.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do decide pick up a sandbox, how to make it a game. Because at the end of the day, it's fun to play with your hands and pick up stuff for like the first month, but you want some games. You want a game to play, and that's where the real challenge comes in with VR. There,
it's the difference between something like Hand Simulator, where it's just a sandbox, you're just moving things around, and Waltz the Wizard, where it's actually a story and game.
Yeah. So you've got the last upgrade, and what I would recommend you do is, and you have to do it this way. You can't take shortcuts with repeaters.
Oh joy.
Is to consider getting that El Cheapo baby router, get Ibu on the horn, and set up full retard wireless.
A wireless that contains nothing but the VR headset and my PC.
What you do is you plug your Ethernet cable into the baby router, and then you plug the baby router into your computer.
Mm-hmm.
And then you set up a special access mode on a specific firmware version that lets it act like a super duper. I'm not even sure what you call it. It's weird. It doesn't follow normal networking conventions, but it works fine and it doesn't interfere with your internet. At least it didn't interfere with mine. And then
yeah, it will with mine because my internet connection is hardwired. So I've only got one Ethernet plug.
That's fine.
So I'll need to figure out a workaround for that.
You don't need a second plug.
Well, I don't have a wireless adapter on my PC either, so.
No. You don't get it. Your computer right now is hardwired into the Ethernet cable.
Correct.
Pull that out and you plug that into the new router, and then you get another Ethernet cable that comes with the router. Plug that into the router and plug that into your PC.
Oh, okay. I think I get you. All right.
And the reason you need to do it this specific way is because the signal needs to go directly to the computer from your headset.
Mm-hmm.
When you set up the virtual desktop connection for the best connection. This just makes it as close as humanly possible to your play area. And this lets you do full retard wireless because there is no travel delay or any kind of interference from the air, because we need to shave off enough milliseconds to get the network latency down to 10 or lower.
Yep.
And to be able to do full retard wireless. It's a very tight window with VR, and you've got to get it that good. And this will work regardless of your connection quality, as long as you've got a high speed internet connection, and you're hardwired into the router upstairs, or rather, you'll hardwire the upstairs router into your new router, and then that router. And you'll basically just make a second Wi-Fi network on the new router, and just connect your headset to that one, and make sure nothing else on your network is connected. Interference. Take a wackadoodle channel that nobody uses for anything. There's a list of the least common picked ones.
Right. Well, thankfully, I'm out in the middle of nowhere, so I really don't need to worry about one neighbor.
Yeah. Well, I meant people in your house with their various Wi-Fi devices all connected to the main router.
Oh, yeah, yep. They all
will
tend to come in on more or less the same channels, so.
Yeah, you will set up a wackadoodle channel on the new router and then connect your headset to the new router, and it will be good. Get you under 10 milliseconds between headset and router, and this is enough where it will not lag and chop on you. And
yeah,
that's
so it's the start of a very interesting road, and actually a very big learning curve too, by the look of it.
For full retard VR, yeah. For what you got now, you can just plug it in and live with the cable.
Yeah, if I can live with a little bit of input lag.
Oh, it's not
for some
input
games,
lag.
that'll be fine.
It's
not input lag. Yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's visual lag, and the problem with that is it makes you sick.
Yeah.
It's not a gameplay thing. It is a you will
puke your guts out thing.
Yeah, you will not be able to process that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna die.
So yeah, I got some learnings to do.
But yeah, it sounds more complicated than it is once you've got it down, and once you've got it all set up, it's as easy as just flipping your sound device every time you turn on the thing. That's it.
Which I do every other day. I do go on Discord anyway, so that's fine.
Yeah, that's as easy as that once it's all set up for full wireless. And just setting it up wired in the meantime will work fine.
Yeah.
The cable, I don't know how long the base cable is because I pretty much immediately went to full wireless with my new headset.
It's fairly long from what I can tell. It's a few meters.
Yeah, you're going to need at least like 15 feet.
Yep.
But yeah. Oh, we got
So,
the.
yeah,
I'm running off
actually,
into the ether again with the camera stuck.
oh no! Actually, let me see if I can pop it up and let me see if it actually tells me what the chord length is.
Yeah.
That's saying arriving Friday now. That was no, that was 2 days ago. That's wrong. What are you doing, Amazon?
Oh, the server caught up for me.
Let's see. That's the charge cable. That's the standalones.
The charging cable can be the connecting cable for the headset.
Yes, thank you, USB.
Yes, USB to USB-C, I believe. Might be C to
Yeah.
C. Might be C to C. But if that's the case, $2 adapter will fix that.
Yeah, I've got to go get one of those in that case. That's just annoying.
Good to have one on hand anyway for wacky stuff that is USB C to C. You don't have a second
Yeah.
C handy.
No, it doesn't actually say how long the charge cord is in it anyway.
But yeah, I'll walk you through all of it and help you get it started getting set up.
Yeah. Like, for the most part, it does seem fairly self-explanatory. It's just going through and figuring out all the little foibles and twiggly bits.
Yeah, it's just how retard you want to go with this.
Yeah.
The closer we approach the full wireless retard, the more complicated it gets. But once you've got it set up, it's set up.
Yeah.
Out of the box, just plugging it in, you can just boot virtual desktop and you'll be good to go.
Yep. Hey, at this point, I could probably just turn it on. I'll put it on, turn it on, and play Batman without even doing anything else.
Yeah, Batman.
So there's that.
Batman, you don't even have to connect to your PC. You'll just play it with the headset.
It's already installed.
Yep. So, it's on your account. You still have to download and install it.
Yeah. Okay.
But that won't take very long.
That won't take long.
Yeah, Batman's a good time with it. So yeah, we'll figure out where you want to go and how deep into it you want to get after you've experimented a bit. The only Steam VR game I would recommend you get so you can play with us is Walkabout Mini Golf.
Yeah. Like, there's a good number of games that are already in my library which I can just pick up and run with it.
Yeah, and if you need game recommendations, I'm going through. I've got a few that I can give you. The VR library is better than it was years ago. There are plenty of games there now, but there's still a lot of shovelware you can accidentally fall face first into.
Yeah.
They Steam's lack of quality control on VR has been, oh boy, there's some shovelware there. But yeah, I guess we can quickly do the VR stuff. I think Vol's back, but that'll keep the VR contained in its own topic.
All right, sounds good.
There is a certain span of time after which you should not eat a chicken pie.
Right.
Oh, it was a slightly older chicken pie?
It was sitting in the fridge for maybe 5 days.
Yeah, you're playing with fire on that one.
It was like, it'll be okay, right? It tastes all right.
Yeah.
Oh,
no. I only have chicken pot pies when they come out of the freezer. And then I cook them that day and eat them. I never save them. But yeah.
Yeah.
We were going over. I guess you heard most of it. We were going over VR stuff from Fern.
I had my headphones on still, so
yeah.
Yep.
So, we'll wrap the VR stuff and go back to Vol's week. So, my week for VR was pretty much most of what I did because all the Hoyo games were on farming mode this week, aside from one thing in Star Rail that we'll when we get around to it. So this week I played some Walkabout Mini Golf with Ibu, and I mentioned this before with like playing ceiling golf and wall golf, and that was fun, and going under the sea and the Jules Verne set, and shooting your ball over the Kraken, and generally finding stuff on the map that's just interesting to go through, and just these little areas they put for you just to go explore and see the map they put together. Walkabout Mini Golf is not a technically complicated game or particularly beautiful game, but it does have a whole lot of fun places just to go and see what's over there.
Usually there's a spare ball over there.
Yeah, they do like to hide balls around, and this is how you get more balls to use. Is you every course or every hole on the course has a hidden ball somewhere, and so whenever we would get to a new set of holes, the first part of the gameplay would devolve into scavenger hunt.
Yep, I can see that.
And this was fun, and it was a time going through it. But it's mini golf. It's just something that is always fun as a side activity. It's a known activity. Everybody's played mini golf or at least seen people play golf, and it's just a fun time. And the whole lot of there's no way you're going to thread the needle for the hole in one strut on this hole. I'm going for it. And whether you make it or not, it's still a good time. So yeah, that was one thing that I did, and that was pretty much all my multiplayer time this week. Single player time. So last year, a game won the Game of the Year awards that I had not been following. I didn't know anything about it, and I did some looking into it. So I got it for I apparently had it on my wish list, and Ibu got it for me for Christmas, and that was Vertigo 1 and 2. Vertigo 1 was made by a guy when he was barely out of middle school through high school and released when he was 17. It is somebody got a toolkit, got him a toolkit for VR, and he went full autism mode with it. And he made a little 4-hour game that was liked as a indie game, but it's got a whole. It's made by somebody that clearly is figuring out what they're doing on the fly.
Made by somebody who couldn't afford to employ a QC team.
No, there's a whole lot of jank in that game. Never mind a testing team. And the remastered version has ironed out the worst of the jank to make it more playable. But it is still made by a kid. And you will notice this from the dialogue, in that it is the most shallow dialogue on the planet. And the instructions he gave to his actors, who I suspect were just his buddies or who he had laying around, are dubious.
With their worked for Bad Fur Day.
Yeah, it's it was okay. But yeah, it's mostly an experimental sandbox where you progress through the levels and get more guns to shoot stuff with. You wind up replacing the previous gun you had awfully fast with the new gun, and the new gun seems to always be better than the previous gun as you go through the game. So you don't get to spend a whole lot of time with any of the weapons. But it works. It's an okay experience taken in that context. But the real meat and potatoes of it is Vertigo 2. Like, I'm not kidding. It takes you 3 to 4 hours to go through the game, and then if you want all the Chivos, tack on an extra 1 hour to zip through the game, most of which will be sitting there in cutscenes, to complete the game with no upgrades achievement for Vertigo 1. It is a super, super quick experience. Vertigo 2 is a full-feature complete game with a full 20-hour story.
Bit of a step up.
Yeah. He took 8 years to make this one. And he did a pretty good job so far. I'm not even halfway through the game yet, I don't think. But there are boss fight. I've run into 2 big full boss fights so far, both of which were pretty good. The second one made me incredibly dizzy. But and I don't mean VR dizzy, I mean physically dizzy from actually spinning my body around. So yeah, that was a thing. But its gun progression makes a whole lot more sense. None of the guns become irrelevant as soon as you get a new gun. You get the shotgun as your second weapon, and I've fully upgraded that thing, and I'm still using it. The upgrade system actually exists instead of just a generic. You find what he calls quantum juice in the first game, and you suck it up.
Literally quantum juice.
Yes, it's orange. It looks like orange juice that floats in the sky.
And that's how you know it's quantum.
Yeah, and so
Yes.
you pull out your teleporty wand and you suck it up with the teleporty wand, and you just contribute this towards longer teleport range or faster teleports or more gun damage or faster reloads. Like, okay, it's the most bare bones upgrade system of all time. The second game instead, you find upgrade caches as you progress through the levels, and some of them are on the path through the game, some are more hidden, and they let you pick one upgrade for a weapon, and they're and each weapon has its own upgrade tree of about 4 to 6 upgrades you can get. So that is a much better progression system going through the game. The enemy variety is insane in Vertigo 2. There is, I think I've counted, we've gone from something like 8 or 9 enemy types in the first game to easily over 30 at almost halfway through the game in the second game.
That's good.
Yeah, we're
Like the first game, admittedly, like you got to keep in mind it was made by a kid.
yeah. I'm giving him a bit of a pass there because he was a kid. But
He seems to have learned like a lot.
Yeah,
a lot.
And he put a lot of time into this game. There's hidden secrets and Easter eggs everywhere. I found a conspicuous hole in like the first real level of the game, and
Conspicuous hole.
It jumped in
Best
there.
kind of hole.
Yeah, jumped in there and found a spot you could teleport to. One thing I do miss is the teleport mechanic from the first game. He had a really good idea with this. You find a little wand as the first item you find in the first game, and you point at something, and it puts a bubble on top of the wand that lets you see through it and see the area that you've locked onto, and then you take the wand and you swoosh it over yourself to teleport through it. So you pull that little bubble of pocket space on top of yourself. It was a really cool effect. In 2,
different.
In 2, he decided to go in a more action gameplay focused route, though, and this means we just have the traditional teleporting in your left hand that you do. But unlike most games, the teleporting is not done as an option for comfort, aside from traditional locomotion. It's done in tandem with it. So you will have to move and teleport at the same time.
Okay.
Just like Unreal Tournament, then.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. And there's a third level of locomotion if you want to get into physical body movement on top of it. So you have control stick movement, physical body movement, and teleporting, all of which sometimes need to be used in conjunction. It is a pretty good time getting all that and getting it to flow together. However, I do not recommend it for your first VR game or at all, even if you play Vertigo 1 first, because if you have not got over your VR legs yet from active full locomotion VR games, oh boy, are you going to get sick as a dog playing this game. The Vertigo is not a title, it's a descriptor of what will happen to you. So yeah, I've enjoyed Vertigo 2 a lot so far. I got very curious about the developer after playing through the first game and starting the second game, and did some digging. He is as you would expect, an autistic turbospurg, but he is a mono-issued autistic turbospurg on social media anyway, and has apparently left social media entirely. And now just
proves he has at least some sense.
And now does streaming on Twitch. And he's still a young kid. His turbospurg pet issue is he doesn't like Israel.
Yeah, that's kind of like turbospurg issue du jour at the moment.
Yeah, well, he's a dumb kid. If that's your monofocus one, all right, there are worse ones you could have. Have not noticed, other than the fact the main human protagonist of the games, because the second game has four different characters you play as, but the human protagonist is Sonia, who is a mute black girl. Mute as in she's a silent protagonist, but she's other than that, not a whole lot of woke points. Because the game is a first person game, the most you see is your police car stained hands.
Wait, what?
Am I going to jail for that one, Vol?
Probably.
Or is that one
Well,
too subtle enough?
your government is under new management, so
Yeah, I might be safe.
Yeah. You have the orange man running around with the giant axe at the moment, so.
Well, I have the Rocket Man running around with the giant axe and the Orange Man giving him a thumbs up.
Yeah, so they got bigger issues at the moment.
Yeah, that's hopefully that's the way that goes. So yeah. Other than that, though, not a whole any kind of real wokery going on in the game.
That's good.
I found more wokery and walkabout mini golf with me humming and hawing about some of the random ball colors you can get, because eventually you start running out of colors you can put on balls and you start going, this is a woke reference. And I'm like, no, I've just been inundated with too much of that crap. It's just a freaking ball and they used every other color and pattern in the book.
Yeah. Besides, there's so many woke flags at the moment, just about everything could probably be one anyway.
sometimes a ball is just a ball, except when they're big balls and you get banned.
No, then you get brought back.
Yeah, you get brought back into the Doge.
And you get forever immortalized as big balls by the internet.
I missed something entirely there, I think. Do I want to know?
Basically, there's a guy in the Department of Government Efficiency who has an alt account for shit posting, and he got called out on it for saying something somebody didn't like. Don't remember what it was. It's not really important, but basically, Elon Musk, with the presidential blessing, brought him back into the Doge after he'd been cancelled, and this was like the progressives were extremely upset by this, since cancellation is supposed to mean you disappear from the face of the earth, never to be heard of ever again. Forgiveness is not something that's allowed. And the vice president just said, no, stop being a tool. And that was the end of it. And there was no penalties for anybody involved. And basically, the left was very upset.
That's how it should be. It's like someone's being a tool. You say, no, stop being a tool. And that's all it should usually take.
Yeah, and then...
But honestly, I'm still highly amused by all these news pundits saying Doge over and over again at the moment.
Yeah.
I wonder how many of them don't even know.
I don't think most of them know.
The
ones who know, though, you can tell because they do still have that kind of slight smile at the corner of their mouth when they say it.
I had to explain...
I missed that meme entirely. Like, it had to be introduced to me after it had stopped being a thing, because somehow I just didn't know about it at all. So every time I hear the word Doge, it's like, oh, they mean the head of a city-state in Italy, right?
Nope.
No, that's not what that word means.
Yeah, it's been fun following Doge this week. The USAID getting the axe taken to it has made me incredibly happy.
They sent like $500 million to Auckland University. No wonder it ended up being this wellspring of woke that infected all the other universities.
Well, they're not
like
getting
all
any
of a
more.
sudden it just sort of burst out without anybody understanding why it had happened so suddenly, and now we know why. Because there's a massive cash injection enabled it.
Yep,
that's one of the lower key ones.
Yeah, there were billions of wasted dollars going to just pet projects by politicians and the left especially.
Yeah.
That guy's not having a good time. There we go.
And they're funding Iraqi Muppets or whatever it was.
Oh yeah, the wonderful trans dance pageants in Afghanistan or whatever it was.
Yeah, so who are you helping? Why are you funding this?
Like, that's a good way to cause some rooftop enrichment.
But anyway, that's getting off track.
So yeah.
Let's just say it has been highly amusing.
Yeah. Vertigo 2, surprisingly, I thought I was a bit worried with its art style that we'd have a bit of wokery to deal with, but so far not really. It's been relatively woke free. at least of hard
It
woke.
does look. It does look extremely Cal Arts to me.
It
Does a
does.
bit, doesn't it?
It does have a bit of that going on. Initial impressions, although most of the humans are. Something tells me it's mostly because the guy just ain't an artist. He's
Well,
an
neither are the Cal Arts artists, honestly.
well, no, he's an autist, not an artist. I know these two
There you
things
go.
can sometimes sound similar, but they are in fact different things. So, uh, he's working with what he's got. If he did have somebody come in and do the modeling, uh, which he seems to for some of the enemies, he got some help doing the modeling because some of the enemies look really good. But it is a very eclectic mix because he's still mostly making the game by himself. He's I think he does have something resembling an art team now, but I can forgive a bit of a janky art style for a game that's fun to play, and so far it's all been fun to play.
Yeah. Ultimately, at the end of the day, he's a kid who's gone into high school and done that thing we all did at one point, which goes, I'm going to make a video game. But he actually got off his ass and did it.
Yeah, except he actually completed the idea, learned from it, and then made something even bigger.
Yeah. Instead of my last attempt during high school, which was like half a page of HTML.
Yeah, mine was
So-
RPG Maker.
Oh yeah, actually there was a niche RPG Maker equivalent that I used too for a bit. That was fun. Didn't actually really make anything of value with it, but yeah, it's fun just to play around with.
Yeah. So I'm keen to experience the rest of the game. Hopefully it holds up until the end. The dude is quite the autist and a bit weird. So it could go in weird places, but for now I'm just enjoying playing the video game. And as long as it can do that, it's another solid long VR experience we can add to the bucket. Final review and impressions and comparison to where rates on the Alex scale will come once the game is done. Or rather, once I finish the game.
Yeah.
So that's
All right.
that's the VR stuff. All right, back to Vol's week.
Right. I was just reflecting on how Fern and I were just fighting the donut robot, as I have mentally designated them, and Aristiel gave a supreme demonstration of Mavwika's ability to trivialize all content by rolling up and doing 200k damage.
Beep beep motorbike,
Instantaneously.
boom.
They really should give you the ability to honk a horn on her motorcycle.
They really should. That or play card games.
Anyway. What else did I do during my week? So I've made I've more or less backburnered Honkai Impact Third after completing the first main story arc, which is, you know, of the two that they've got. So what has been deployed so far is basically Arc 1 interlude and the beginning of Arc 2. But I have dipped into the interlude in bits and pieces here and there. It's so far the interlude has been a fairly good kind of interlude story. So basically, there's nothing happening in terms of, you know, the world shattering changes or whatever that play out toward the end of Arc 1, and things are basically gradually creeping back to normal. Although there's a huge amount of remediation work that needs to be done worldwide, and aid work and so on and so forth, because everything basically fell apart at the climax of part 1. But the story of the interlude seems to focus primarily around Seele and other Seele, since there are two Seles. And it's been quite an interesting little plot, because she's always been just a supporting character at the side for the vast majority of the story. She takes a little bit more of a front row position during parts of the Hersher of Domination arc and a little bit of the Moon arc, but mostly she's a supporting character, but this one basically has her as the lead, and it's sort of kind of gratifying to see her, who was historically more or less a shrinking violet type of character, sort of end up stepping up to take the lead because the other characters are all doing things. So Kiana's basically on the moon doing moon things or whatever.
Because why not?
Raiden May is training to become a teacher, and Bronya is pursuing her grand ambition of making video games by working for Welt.
Hang on, what?
Which so Welt Yang that you meet in Star Rail is the same person, not an alternate, as the Welt that you meet in Honkai Impact 3rd. And he is he was the second Hersher of Reason before he passed the mantle on to Bronya, and he was the title is Sovereign of Anti-Entropy, which was a splinter of Shixel who disagreed with Shixel's philosophy of how to fight the Honkai, and so they formed their own organization. He was the lead of it, but because they were basically sort of like they were a splinter of Shixel, which is mainly based in Europe. I think that their main headquarters is in Italy. The main base for Anti-Entropy is in Salt Lake City, and they basically don't have any assets initially, apart from what they took with them when they rebelled. So they had to do a lot of fundraising, and the method that they decided to take early on in the sort of the 90s 2000s era was to make anime. So
As you do.
Welt gained quite a bit of notoriety as the lead producer and art director of an extremely successful giant robot show.
I see.
But yeah, basically after the events of Arc 1, he retires from being the Sovereign because Anti-Entropy and Shixel become merged back together, and Teresa Apocalypse takes over as the overseer of both. And since Welt has also passed the mantle of Hersher of Reason on to Bronya, he doesn't have to be a Hersher anymore either. So he basically goes back to his old job. Bronya, on the other hand, finds out and decides that no, she's going to go and become an intern working for Welt instead of doing anything constructive. So she does that, and since the other of the main three are occupied, that basically leaves the shrinking violet, shy little girl Seele as the last remaining ace from the original cast in Shixel. So the thing is that she's not a formally trained Valkyrie. She's one of the very, very rare individuals who bears a stigma and can channel Honkai energy without needing to be modified in any way. She was just born that way. There are very few who are. But that means she's got no formal training. She's only got sort of improvised combat skill up until she started training at Shixel, and she's basically doesn't know anything about battlefield tactics or anything like that. So she's basically in this position where she's being hothoused to become one of the new aces of Shixel because everybody else is off doing whatever silly bullshit they want to, and they've earned the right to do so because they went and saved the world. And so the story of the interlude is basically Sele's big solo mission. Well, not solo, but like she's in the lead this time. Along with another Valkyrie who is a B ranker from Durandal's team, and B rank is one of the lowest ranks of Valkyrie that you can be and still stand on the battlefield. And Susanna, the B rank Valkyrie, is kind of a goober. She's incredibly naive. She's very competent at combat, like at an acceptable level for a reasonably highly ranked Valkyrie. She's not like a prodigy or anything like some of the other characters. She's not an ace or anything like some of the other characters, but she's a very solid combatant. But she's just kind of a dunderhead, so she's never advanced further than B rank. she's actually very skilled on technical matters, but she has very little common sense, and she's incredibly trusting and naive. So she's the assistant that Sele has, and they basically get drawn into this sort of like multiverse spanning conflict in the course of this interlude, which was just supposed to be investigating some thefts in a city, and it just basically the whole adventure spirals wildly out of control. But yeah, it's actually been a really entertaining little self-contained side story. So yeah, I really enjoy the very character-focused story of Honkai Impact Third, but it's just too much to fully participate in that game. The content output of Hoyo Labs is just bonkers, so I can't keep up with multiple Hoyo games all at once. So it is on the back burner as far as participation in most respects is concerned, but I'm still taking my time to go through the story a little bit at a time and see what all the characters are up to. And there are sort of interesting sort of branching insights that are related to Honkai Star Rail in an indirect way. Like they're not, they don't have any bearing on the Honkai Star Rail story, and you don't need to know any of the Honkai Impact Third story to enjoy Star Rail. But there are sort of like little Easter egg scale things that you see, like particularly certain conversations with Acheron tend to make a little bit more sense if you're familiar with Raiden Mei, and to a much lesser extent Raiden A from Genshin Impact, being that they're all the same person having lived different lives essentially, because of the very complicated structure of the Hoyoverse setting, which is it's the only setting that is similar to it is basically the Type Moon setting, which operates along similar rules but with different overarching powers in charge. In that you do have multiple parallel worlds that exist at the same time, but they have to sort of consistently earn the right to continue existing by not becoming stagnant. But yeah, so it's and the new arc, the Amphorius arc in Honkai Star Rail draws very heavily on the sort of the previous era arcs in Honkai Impact Third, because a lot of those characters are derived from there. Although it's sort of like a half-half mix. Like some of the characters are completely new, and others among the characters are basically alternates of characters that exist in Honkai Impact Third. It's sort of interesting. Like for instance, Finon, one of the main characters in the Amphorius story in Honkai Star Rail, is very obviously an alternate of Kevin from Star Rail, except that they're sort of it's sort of interesting because by the time you meet Kevin in Honkai Impact, he's already become very cold. Like he's had enough of life. He just wants it all to be over. Because he's been around for 50,000 years trying to set things right. Whereas
Yeah, that'd do it.
the Finon that you meet in Star Rail, his alternate, is sort of like still a young man. He's got a dark past, but he hasn't completely been bled dry of all positivity at this stage. So he's got more of a proactive outlook, and he's able to relate to other people still, and that sort of thing. So it's sort of interesting to see, oh, this is what he might have been like under different circumstances. But yeah, the destiny of Kevin's is to become the bad guy, so I don't know how long Finon will be on our side. But yeah, so it's interesting seeing the different characters playing different roles in the different settings. At any rate, so moving down the line, I haven't really done much in Genshin since last week. Last week I finished the Lantern Rite story, and I thought it was superb. I enjoyed the entire thing. How far did you make in it, Fern?
I've just gotten the 3 out of the barrier first. So I'm not sure how far along the story is.
I think it's about halfway.
It feels about halfway.
Well, you've only got 4 hours to complete it, so we should
Yeah.
not let the show roll on too long because it's definitely worth doing. Because it's a really well told story.
We could
Don't leave Lantern right to the last minute.
I've kind of left Lantern right to the last minute.
Yeah, if you want, we can probably bop out of your world and you can go run down there and keep doing it so we can.
That's probably a good idea, actually, so I can get those rewards because there is a lot of Primo Gems attached to it.
Well, I there are a lot of Primo Gems attached to it, but really, to me, the experience is the reward. It's a really well told story, especially if you're already a fan of Hu Tao. So I wrote in the whatchamacallit, I wrote the feedback form this week in Genshin, for the survey, and basically a lot of it was just me whinging about how bad the Archon story was for the current patch.
I hope you saved a little bit of that vitriol for Imaginarium Theatre.
I didn't bother to talk much about Imaginarium Theatre this time, since Imaginarium Theatre hasn't changed at all since last time. When there's nothing else going on, then I'll go back to whinging about Imaginarium Theatre. But
it's still bad, though.
The reason I'm interested in playing the game is because I like the setting and the stories, and the Archon quest this time was just a disappointment, and the character quest for Mavuika underscored that disappointment. I was just not particularly thrilled by it. There are a variety of reasons for that, and different people have clearly had different impressions of it. Yeah, I was not particularly amused, and I felt like it was underlined by Lantern Wright, because to me, Lantern Wright is telling the same story in a very real sense. You've got, there's an individual who has inherited a responsibility, and the responsibility comes with certain risks, and they have to, enter into the heart of darkness to resolve the conflict for the sake of their people, etc., etc. And basically, the difference is I feel like Hu Tao as a protagonist is completely engaged with the task and the risks and the consequences and how other people feel about those things. Whereas I feel like Mavuika, by contrast, is completely disconnected from those things. She just doesn't seem to care. She's just so ridiculously confident about everything that there's not really any cost associated with anything to her, because as far as she's concerned, she's already paid her costs in the course of her backstory. But unfortunately for the story writers, things that happen off screen don't happen as far as the viewer is concerned. You're just telling people, oh, well, I mean, this is the way things are, so just deal with it, okay?
There's also the whole thing of, like, anything that hasn't happened yet, we don't know about. Writers might know about it, but we don't.
It's also, in Lantern Wright, Hu Tao, there is no big bad in Lantern Wright.
Well, the big bad is unseen.
Yeah, well, there isn't a big monster you have to go punch at the end.
Well, yeah, but the thing is that they're clearly trying to tie it directly to the Netland story as well, by saying, oh, well, this happened for some reason, we don't know what it is. Hey, guess what other thing we don't know the reason for? Netland.
Yeah. Hang on. I made a mistake and attempted to munch on a cracker. This was a mistake.
Oh. Dry mouth?
No. It got stuck in my throat.
Oh, yeah. Crackers do that.
And I tried to munch on a cracker last week, and I bit my lip, and it turned into a massive ulcer that I've been dealing with all week.
Ugh. Anyway, but yeah, I thought it worked a lot better not having, or rather, they did two things better than the Natlan Archon quest. One was they established a relationship with a new character of Lanyan with Hu Tao much better in a much shorter time frame. Dropped the foreshadowing hints with Hu Tao throughout the entirety of the story, and through Lanyan, we got to see her reaction and figuring it out, and all the other characters who we already know going, yeah, we know something's up.
Yeah.
And not have to worry about needing to tie it into punching a big boss that we have no attachment to. It just keeps the climax focused solely on Hu Tao. There is
Yeah,
no
well,
mystery
the other thing
dragon
is,
with soy thoughts to wonder about or how they're going to interact with the story. There's just Hu Tao.
well, it's not just that, oh, well, this is where the camera is pointing and this is a much more economical way of doing it. It's also that Hu Tao behaves like a main character. I don't feel like Mavwika does. Like, my opinion of Mavwika is that she behaves like a plot device. She doesn't behave like a person at any point. She just does the thing that needs to be done and she's always successful. Like, she doesn't fail at anything ever at any point in the story. It's always, everything comes up Mavwika every time. And she's absolutely shameless about that. If you look at the behavior of Hu Tao, she's always preparing for every conceivable outcome. Even though she tries to keep everything light, you can see through her behavior that she's considering, best case scenario, worst case scenario, every case scenario, laying all the contingency plans because she knows she has no clue how everything is going to go down in the end. Mavwika doesn't bother. She's just like, oh yeah, okay, we'll do this thing. And anytime Mavwika has to make a sacrifice, she doesn't act like a leader of men. She doesn't consider what will happen to her people if something happens to her. She just goes ahead and does it. And she never faces any consequence for that cavalier way of leading. Like, she's just not an admirable figure. She's a bad leader.
I'm really hoping actually for the next story beat that comes back to bite her on the ass hard.
It could. There's so much that's not answered about that plot. What's going on? What are the powers that are actually at play and what do they want? There's lots of things that are unanswered. There's still room for them to rescue some parts of this. But I just constantly have this vibe like we're meant to be in awe of Mavwika, but she just seems like somebody who leads a charmed life. Because everything always goes her way. And no matter how badly she does her job, it always works for her. It just overcomes everything with brute force. Like, she's got the level of leadership that Goku does.
Yeah.
Like, she knows she's the strongest person in the room, and that most of the types of problems she deals with on a regular basis are the sorts of problems that are just solved by the strongest person in the room hitting it.
At least Goku gets away with it because that's kind of his only note. He's an idiot otherwise.
Goku doesn't get away with it though. Like, famously, I haven't watched it myself, but famously, Vegeta calls him out for being a shitty dad.
Oh yeah, he does all the time.
So everybody knows that Goku's not a squeaky clean person.
Yeah. And I should probably say that he doesn't get away with it so much. It's more that everyone just kind of expects that at this point.
He may be guileless, but being guileless doesn't make you good.
No.
But yeah, so there's a lot of sort of flaws and rough edges and burrs that should have been machined off on the Natlan plotline that I just feel are like, this is carried out with perfect elegance in Lantern Rite. Like, this is the story with all of the emotional weight that we wanted. Because we actually, particularly if you've done her character story already, like it works a lot better if you have. I mean, if Fern hasn't, he definitely doesn't have the time to do it. But
Yeah.
You already care about Hu Tao as a person, and it's communicated very clearly that the concern of everybody that are her friends is for Hu Tao. Like, they would all go to the wall for her if they could. They would do whatever it took to keep her safe, but they can't. Because she has her area of specialty that she's inherited, and she has to work within those bounds, and everybody else will do their best, but there's only so much they can do. Like, all of that sort of emotional weight that is caused by forming those bonds throughout the story between all these familiar people who you care about, that causes it all to hang together. It all makes sense and it gives the whole thing heft. But Natlan doesn't, because Mavwika just magics everything to success every time.
There's also
her multiple, like, is it 500-year plan or whatever that she's carrying out? Like, what does that actually do in the end? Because it really wasn't clear to me.
like in Hu Tao's story, this is encroaching on spoiler territory, but I'll try to be vague. She actually has to get to a point where she has to pay for what she says she's going to have to until the very last microsecond, when Papa's like, yeah, you might want to look behind you.
Well, I mean, you're still building on the character at all times, like because she's given you her opinions of how does this played out in the past, like what is her responsibility as a person, what is her responsibility as the head of the funeral parlor, like what is her place in society, why does she act the way she does, where does she draw the line on various issues. All of this getting to know who Tao stuff gives gravity to what happens later in the plot. And none of that really happens for Mavwika. What you get is name drop after name drop after name drop to give an impression of deep lore without delivering any. And the corollary media for that plot, it tries very hard to trade on, oh well, look at this terrible sacrifice of traveling through time that she's made. Well, this is not a bigger sacrifice than anybody else has to make. Everybody has to say goodbye to family members eventually when they die. Like, and she did a bit earlier because she had this grand plan that she wanted to carry out. If their grand plan had been, actually meaningful as opposed to something that you told us was meaningful without explaining why,
I'm
maybe
still
it would
not
have
sure
been
what
more
the plan
gravitational.
was.
Nor am I. I know what she did. I just don't know why.
This is like people saying trust the plan, all the cue cards on the Donald back in 2020. It's like, yeah, but what is the plan?
This reminds me of the way that every time Fauna now no longer Fauna says it does something that just like she's attempting to do something, it doesn't go the way she is expected and goes all catastrophically wrong. She just starts saying trust the process. It's like this is actually a byword for everything has gone pear-shaped.
I'm going to pretend I know what I'm doing.
But yeah, the individual event doesn't matter because the processes are right. But yeah, it's the Netland story is definitely a narrow slice of what the story needs to be in order for everything that happened to make sense. Like if there had been proper emotional gravity to it, if it had been meaningful, if it had felt meaningful, if it had felt engaging, then all of the weird stuff that wasn't explained wouldn't hurt so much. It wouldn't be so confusing because you could see what it meant to the people involved at the time that it was happening. But rather than that, everybody is doing things for obscure reasons and reacting in obscure ways because they know something we don't. Maybe they don't. Maybe this is like the plot of Lost and nobody really knows. They're just trying to make it sound like there's some deep, dark secret. I don't know. That's what I'm always afraid of ever since Lost came out.
I had a thunk in the middle of this week about Mavwika.
You say.
Instead of that stupid interlude chapter we got, if they'd have put a full extra chapter there that was just still an interlude chapter, not moving the main story very much, but just had you like building the bike for Mavwika with Zelonin and having Mavwika along with you, and her explaining her past and why and what her life was like back in her time, and all the people she misses and all that, and go into her character a bit more, and her explain somewhere where she's messed up in the past, or maybe you mess up building the bike. Like, you could do something like that.
Well, that would downgrade it from bad to clumsy, because the information would then be there.
Yeah, and you would, where she explains the plan, then you could at least criticize the plan and point out why this doesn't make sense.
Yeah, maybe she could show some contrition about attempting to do everything by herself. Like that was one of the other things that really stuck in my craw about the story, and I pointed this out in my feedback as well, is that they spend the entirety of Natlan up to that point pushing this national theme, no one fights alone. And what happens? Mavwika does everything by herself. Like the Traveler shows up basically as a mascot.
Hey, we got to sign autographs.
It's true, you do get to sign an autograph because on paper you play an important role, but
we don't just get to sign one, we get to sign 3 very tediously.
But when you go on your grand mission at the climax of the story, they literally say, oh, just try and show up on time, Mavwika will do everything else. Like, my goodness, I've never felt less heroic. If you look at every other one of the so look at Raiden A, look at Nahida, look at Farina. There's a palpable sense of loss to each of their stories because all of them have to give something up. They all have to face something sad in order to move forward. Raiden A has to basically come to the resolution that she's got to move on from the past. There's no way to protect yourself from loss. She has to face that she's no longer got her sister with her, and that her people aren't going to stall in time just because she doesn't want to face reality. And so she's got to give up her way of life and move forward. If you look at Nahida, she may not have a conscious knowledge of it any longer, but she had to give up an entire life of her own.
She was a very
So
sad
that
cabbage
all of
in that
those,
scene. Oh, she was a very
all of
sad
those,
cabbage.
all of those things she let go of can never be gotten back. And the Traveler gets reminded of this repeatedly as basically the only bearer of the knowledge of how much loss there really was in order to win that victory, in order to create the future, how much it cost. In the case of Farina, that's the whole point. What is the cost? What is the cost for victory? How much do we have to sacrifice? How much do we need to pay? That's the whole story of Fontaine, is about how much do we have to pay in order to find a way to the future. In the case of Mavuika, like they have all of the parts and then they put them together wrong. Like, we know what it cost the people of Natlan because we went to war with them in the previous Archon story.
Yeah,
We know how hefty the cost is, but the problem is that doesn't earn the victory. In fact, that has no interaction with the victory whatsoever as far as we're aware, does it? Does it matter that all those people died? Because chronologically, it doesn't seem to matter all that much. You just, one extra person glows and then the story is over. Okay, it's done now. Is that really the cost? All those people died to make one person glow who then never shows up later?
Hey, she has to go catch her crazy granny in the sky.
It's true. This is one of the things that happens, but it's all very very strange, and all of the same pieces are present, but they assemble them in a totally incoherent fashion, which just ends up leaving you confused and feeling like, oh well, none of these things actually fit together the way they were supposed to. A cost was paid, but the cost was not connected to the victory. A victory was won, but the victory didn't seem to cost anything. It was all very bizarre.
Like they got all the pieces for the puzzle in the first two parts of the story, and they looked like a really cool puzzle on the preview image. And when it came time to put it together at the very end, they just kind of scrambled the inside by accident.
Like that whole story could have been told without a boss. Like the actual conflict that was fought and won at the climax didn't have any connections to anything. It was just a thing you were told you had to do, and then you did it, and then it was done. It was a totally perfunctory, completely a plot device.
Yeah, you can weasel a gameplay boss in there significantly more elegantly than they did. They just kind of needed to cram.
I was expecting even in the most cliche turn of events would have been something like, I don't know, Capitano has an extremist way of solving the problem, and so he takes control of the Abyss in an attempt to weave his solution because he's totally dissatisfied with Mavuika's approach and her sloppiness as a leader, which is something he talks about constantly, and then just stops talking about at some point for no real reason. And then you actually have to fight this person who is desperately trying to carry out their view of the only way to victory. Because then at least you're fighting a person with an agenda, as opposed to just fighting a giant space vagina, I guess. Because that final boss is about as meaningful as the final boss of Borderlands 1.
I mean,
or maybe it's not. Maybe it actually has a lot of meaning. They just didn't bother to communicate it at all.
I mean, he has two swords.
Okay.
I feel like Little One's plot should have been the main plot of Natlan. Like,
yeah.
That's where they're building all of the tension, where they're building all of the intrigue. It's all happening there. Mavwika is just Goku. She just runs in with her sword and starts hitting things. And that's about the only skill she has.
Yeah, it really Natland bugs me because of they did the first parts of it so well, and they just couldn't
But
stick
what
the landing.
happened?
Like
What happened?
they just fell on their face when they went to stick the landing.
I mean,
Like
all of those pieces are still there. They didn't go anywhere, but it's a lot harder to repair now that you've already dropped the project once.
yeah, the rest of the routine is going to be a lot harder when after you did your quadruple flip somersault in the air and you landed on your face. Now you got to do the rest of the routine with a mashed up face.
Yeah, and everybody's just going to be trying to ignore the fact, which is really the only thing they can see. But yeah. So at any rate, I had my complaints and I wrote them out at painful length. Not that it matters because that story will all be written and signed off by now. There's not going to be any changes to it. And it seems like they're just moving in a more light-hearted direction for the next patch because we have the new character coming out. I mean, if I had a nickel for every Dream Eating Tapir anime girl that came out this season, then I would have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice. Is my reaction to it.
Yeah, except one of them tends to keep forgetting that she's tapir and keeps thinking she's a tree spirit.
But at any
So-
rate, Inazuma's resident tapir girl, Resident Baku, is going to put in an appearance, who has become a professional psychotherapist and is the childhood friend of Yaimiko, which is a terrifying pair of concepts to stick together.
Yeah. Instantly, just swinging things back to Lantern right for a moment, I'm just loving these new animations.
Yeah, they've put so much work into enlivening those things. Now
Like-
though that toothpaste is out of the tube and everybody has seen it, there's no way the Star Rail team can avoid doing it anymore.
Yep,
Yeah.
you gotta put some actual emotion into your characters. Like that scene I just went through there where Hu Tao is giving Eugene a hard time. You can see that Hu Tao is being a troll, Eugene is uncomfortable, and Aether is a potato.
Yeah, we talked about during a duo show after we both gone through it, and you weren't there or you had to leave early. About how much more animation and dynamic camera work there is in the Lantern Right compared to other stuff.
Yeah. And yeah,
Like there are more new animations just in Hu Tao alone than like the last 5 patches of Star Rail.
yeah, like there is not a single time that Hu Tao approaches someone like a normal person.
There's a good reason for that.
She is a funeral director and she needs more business. Heart attacks are a good way to
Yes.
get it.
She is
So-
definitely a fan favorite character, definitely one of my favorite characters in the broader cast. And they have basically shown an understanding of that character by the way they have her act, and that really needs to be infectious to their other teams. So I mean, there are other acceptable ways to do it as well, but this is one way, and we know they can do it now because they just proved it.
I will
Yeah.
take just the dynamic camera angles for a start if that's what we got to work with. Like anything.
Well, the approach that is done in Honkai Impact Third, which is a much older game, is to simply just draw CGs for key scenes
Yeah,
and
please.
have those still images in there,
Please.
not black screen.
That's kind of like feels like the lazy way out, really.
But it's still better than black
it's
screen.
It's actually much more effort intensive and more expensive in certain ways. It's just a different type of expertise is used for it. Because you've got to draw a scene from scratch as a piece of art and then insert it in it. Maybe a still image, but that took somebody a long time to do. If you've got a good library of pre-canned animations you've already developed and you know how to manipulate them effectively, you can do creative animated camera work very efficiently once you have that skill set established, compared to drawing an entire piece of key art for a scene. But I don't care which they use, just use one of them.
Use something.
Like, for instance, like black screen with white text of Black Swan checking on March's temperature to see how her health is doing. You could
didn't need to
easily
be
just do you could do a CG for that. It doesn't need to be animated.
or even just
Because it's
a
a
little
single
bit of
scene.
clever camera work.
But no, they didn't show a damn thing, and nobody
Yeah,
really
like
knows why.
they've got the handoff animation. Just have Robin's model next to May. Start that animation, then cut over to Stell for a quick second.
Well, they didn't do anything. Everything is weird. I don't know why they're doing anything. Hopefully they've opened up a lot of cans of worms recently in this beginning of this year. A lot of things that have been sort of unspoken or assumed impossible or whatever have just been demonstrated in the wild. And so now basically you can't hide from it anymore. Everybody's got to face the music. If they don't do something they can do and ought to do, people are going to want to know why. There's not going to be any sort of tacit excuse of, oh, well, this is just the way it's done anymore. So, yeah, but I think that they know that. But yeah, so yeah, Genshin Lantern Rite was the main event. And it was fantastic. I enjoyed it. I haven't done everything for Lantern Rite, but the only thing I haven't done is giving out gift envelopes. Is there even anything that you get out of that?
I didn't run around town and give them out.
I think you just rack up Lantern Rite points for doing that. So if you
Well, I mean,
haven't, if you already
I don't
maxed
need any
those
of
out, then
those,
you're
so.
fine.
But yeah, so I'm not in a hurry to do that because even it's probably going to be like a one line of dialogue or something, even if I do it.
Yeah, like
yeah,
the Puyo Puyo game, we all maybe 10 minutes to get through, clear that out.
It didn't take me long, but I still resented it because I don't really like Puyo Puyo, but I was forced to just do endless Puyo Puyo.
Yeah,
But
it's
I
not
would have
hard.
preferred...
It's just annoying.
Puyo Puyo is a game that frustrates me because occasionally it will throw you a curveball that just feels unfair, like really unfair.
Yeah, it does do that.
And I don't really like that feeling. But yeah, that's that. ZZZ this week have not really done much because not much has happened. There's been that little event with the camera, and that was about it. Other than the annoying, I hate it arcade event. Please stop making me do arcade games. I don't want to do them. Like if I wanted to play, like I would not play Bizarre Brigade for its own sake ever, because if I want to do that, I can just play Holocure, which I like.
Yeah.
Well,
So don't ask
it
me
has
to play
waifus.
Bizarre Brigade.
like I might play your arcade games, like if I'm just talking to people on Discord on a weekend or something. But and pick up a few of the permanent rewards, but please don't put time limited crap in there.
Oh, it's raining. That's unusual.
So I resented being funneled into that. I did the minimum that I need to get all of the important rewards, and then I've just basically ignored it since then. I finished 4 Boos, and I'm glad to see the back of that place, because, man, latency and those games do not mix. So that's the thing. I have basically flunked out of Shield Defense for this cycle. And it's simply a matter of the HP inflation has gotten away from me. I can't compete anymore. Because my electric team is very, very bare bones. It's just Enby, Grace, and Rena. And that's worked so far for electric half of any given thing. But virtually every stage has an electric half this time, and it is the half which has an enormous amount of hit points. They've given all of the easy sides to the ice team this time. And I don't appreciate it because my electric team is not up to scratch.
Yeah, mine is further along than yours is, but it ain't. It's by far my weakest team, and I was cutting it close.
Yeah, well, I don't have an S ranker to be the point man on that either. Like when it comes to comparing Anbi and Qingyi, one of them contributes to the team, the other one basically doesn't. It's just an impact engine. So it's not really it's not if you have to scrape to get in with a well-built S rank as the point man for that team, with me with a modestly well-built A rank is just not going to be able to compete. So I missed out by about 25 seconds. It was a huge margin. And then on the 6th node and on the 7th node I missed out by 40 odd seconds, which is even worse. And I had good time on target for for the whole fight as well. It's just that the numbers that I was putting out were not high enough.
In addition to
There was
Miyabi,
not really any way to fix it.
coming out, I wonder if she's seeing a big HP bump lately because they are attempting to find a ground to balance it on with everybody being able to use ultimates now. Because
Well, I mean that's certainly the case, but even if everybody can use ultimates, that's not actually going to increase the damage output all that much. Because usually ultimates for characters that are not DPS have a relatively low key effect because they were designed originally not to be used. So they don't tend to perturb the game all that much. It makes more instinctive logic to be able to use them, and you can get mileage out of them certainly, but they don't really move the total output needle a huge amount on their own. They might do going forward, like for instance, Astra Yao's is way more significant than the ultimate of any other support in the game. Especially when you take into account the share of total damage that Evelyn gets from chain attacks. Like the effect of that ult is definitely way more significant. But the other ones in the game currently are like Nicole's is basically the same as her EX special, and so is Lucy's pretty much the same as her EX special. Like there's just not that much moving the needle there for supporting characters, and a similar principle applies to stunners as well. The only characters that are really profoundly affected by this are Anomaly, because of the amount of Anomaly that an ultimate typically applies, since moving that gauge is the most important thing to that archetype. But I don't really think that is to blame for this. I think that this is just the pace of HP inflation they have established, because it's been about the same each time. Like, each time I lag behind by 20 seconds more than the last time on each stage, roughly speaking. And this time that knocked off 2 stages.
yeah,
So yeah, there's really no way through there. I still have a little bit of room before I hit the ceiling of upgrading my characters, but it's not enough room to make up 25 seconds. That's not going to happen. But
when it comes to electric teams, for DPS you can aim for, I mean, there's really only Haramasa right now, but we got Soldier Ambi coming out, and I'm hoping that
yeah, well, I mean that's what I'm concerned about, right? Like everybody's got everybody's got Haramasa. Everybody knows that Haramasa's like iffy to play, but works. Like if you're good with Haramasa, you can get mileage out of him, but he's hard to build and hard to play. And what I'm concerned about is that the whole objective of the cycle of Shiyu defense is to make people feel like their electric roster is really lacking. Because there's 2 electric premium characters coming out in the next patch.
Yeah. Because I'm more keen to pull for Anby afterwards, after going through the Shiyu cycle.
Yeah, because the sag in your electric team has suddenly become very, very obvious, and it seems difficult to me to conclude anything other than, oh, this was on purpose to make people feel like they need to juice up their electric side a bit more. Because normally I would expect, with Evelyn dropping very shortly, that they would have some fire in there, but they don't.
Yeah.
There's no opportunity to showcase Evelyn at all in Shiyu defense.
On Evelyn's release, there will be no Fire Week Shiyu.
And Deadly Assault is even worse this time, because it seems to be assuming everybody pulled Ellen, and that's not a thing. Everybody did not pull Ellen, because it's ice on 2 sides. Like, are you mad? How many people have 2 fully built ice point men that aren't named Aristeel?
I mean, even then, I didn't use Ellen. I off-typed Butcher.
Yeah, it's all a bit, the construction, like the Deadly Assault is basically heading in the opposite direction that I recommended in like the last 3 feedback forms. It's becoming increasingly specific is what you need. If you are not Aristeel, who has completely committed to pull every character, no cost too great, you are basically screwed going forward.
Real problem is getting the resources to build them all.
It's I think that we're probably more about a patch or maybe 2 patches away from hitting the wall in ZZZ, where I think they're going to lose a lot of players because they simply will have scaled out of people's ability to participate.
Yeah, the this Shiyu was worrying in particular. Deadly Assault, I've pretty much written into the bucket of we'll wait and see after several patches where they're at because people's rosters need to grow for this to become more viable. Um, so I don't think too much about Deadly Assault. My roster is diverse enough that I can do things like Fruity off type and Butcher with Jane and Bernice.
And by diverse enough, you mean virtually every character in the game.
Hey, didn't pull Unagi and it bit me in the butt this time. But
Like most people are just not going to have that. Like this is you are not the template for the average player. You need to understand this.
I never said I was.
That basically means that your impression of the effectiveness of their design is not at all reflective of its actual effectiveness, because you have twice as many tools as the average person.
I never once said that I was looking at it from a perspective of the average player, or that I
But
wasn't.
you are. You think you're taking that into account, but you said yourself you've written into the bucket of it needs more time, right? But what
Because-
happens when you give a feature that people can't engage with more time? Do people engage with it after time? No, they don't, because they couldn't engage with it when it was new. They don't come along after the fact.
Yeah.
Game features are like this. If people can't engage when it's new, they don't engage.
But yeah, the anyway, there's not a whole lot
So
of.
if you didn't have completionist disease, would you have done Swarm Disaster in HSR?
No.
Yeah, because it's ancient. It's not a new feature.
But anyway, the thing is with Deadly Assault, I've only been using it to try out fruity teams mostly. I tried the full retard shock team on the freaking robot again to see how it would go this time. It somehow went even worse than last time, but I was stubborn and decided to pull it off anyway. Did off type.
That's the worst. That's the worst boss. You thought it was the best one in that cycle. I think it's easily the worst because all the constraints are really hard to comply with. You need a gigantic roster in order to participate in that fight.
Yeah, so it went pretty bad this time for me. I don't know what they've done to the guy, or if I was just playing worse because I'm more out of practice. But yeah, that boss didn't go so hot this time, and was driving me up the wall. Butcher, I did fruity off element teams. Just trying.
You made a big deal about Butcher last time, but it was so trivial. Like I walked over him in a few seconds. It was like I hit that goal with so much time to spare.
I did not take many attempts on Butcher with fruity fruity off teams this time. I forget what the fudge I was doing last time. But yeah,
Well, whatever it was wasn't necessary, because if I can walk over it with no effort whatsoever, you definitely should have been able to. You must have been doing something weird.
and then Ballerina Twins this time was the designated Miyabi target. So the electric characters were locked into the other one.
Yeah, these constraints are way too tight. Way too tight. It does not make any sense as a design. Like, it would barely make any sense as a design if the game was 3 years old. It definitely doesn't as a game that's 1 year old.
Yeah, well, I'm waiting to see what they do with Deadly Assault as patches roll on. Because right now you're not finding many people to outside of the people that are wailing so hard they've got Mindscape plus on the 5 stars that are able to seriously do it. Even the Dolphin tier people are barely scratching it.
It's not worth the effort. That's the thing. It's not really worth trying because you're not really playing against the enemies. You're playing against the game structure, and that doesn't feel like a fair fight. Like, this time, it's the number one. There's no effort going in. Like, this doesn't look like they've gone into any effort this cycle. They've just carbon copied previous bosses and used them. This is not like some of the other ones where we've seen an interesting new spin on a boss. They've literally just copy pasted.
Yeah, this
And
whole cycle also does have a really bad copy paste problem. I think every single boss is reused with the
and
exact same gimmicks.
And secondly, their gimmicks don't really feel very engaging. They feel like it's just a way of forcing you to use certain characters. And this time, the overlaps are extremely heavy. Like, the only way you can use an off-type character is if you have already got them built as far up to the nines as that you possibly can. You know, maximum hamster cage passes on everybody. Otherwise, you're just not going to have the necessary output, even playing into the gimmick. And what's more, you need to have the particular teams as well. It's not sufficient to have teams. They have to be the team that they nominate. And in the case of the robot, has to be a team that they nominate that is not taken up somewhere else, that just happens to have the right combination of assist types in it for the only team you've got left over to do that fight. Like,
Yeah.
it's like being straitjacketed.
While I enjoyed learning the robot the first time, as he makes subsequent appearances, he's wearing on me. I found him fun to learn. I do not find him fun to repeat. Because
I don't think it's I didn't find it fun to learn at all because I just didn't have the characters for it. Like, if they had made any type of assist will do the job, that would have been a different question because then you could use whatever team you felt like you could use to do him. But no. If you don't have the exact right characters, it doesn't matter how good your player is because you actually can't trigger his mechanics at all. That's terrible design.
Yeah, it does not help that assist type is not telegraphed. But yeah, we've been on the Hoyo games for a while, and I just don't have much to say about the end games on CZZ this cycle go round because one is an electric side when most people don't have a well built electric roster, and one is a deadly assault rehash.
I'm sure there are some hardcore Haramasa fans who can get real mileage out of him.
I mean, I had to go into off type. I think I had to bust Zhu Yuan out to do one of them.
Like, most Haramasa fans are girls, and most girls don't take ZZZ in-game seriously. So, that's just it. Nobody uses Haramasa.
Like I have him like at 88888 or something, and some discs on him. He can slot in a pinch. The discs aren't great,
but you've got to dump a solid hour into wearing in your muscle memory each time you pull them out of the toolbox.
Oh yeah, you got to rebuild how to set up the
This
arrows.
Is totally janked.
And learn how to do the hold combos and the dash attack combos and when each one is.
I think it's
most
actually kind
optimal.
of interesting. I think it's actually kind of interesting to play him. The problem is that it's sort of like I have to go through him another layer of the same thing I go through every time I switch between Caesar and Anby, which is that I have to completely recalibrate my thinking because Caesar wants to counter everything and Anby wants to dodge everything.
Yeah, I have
and the number of times that Anby has been pile driven into the ground because I tried to block something is really quite ridiculous.
Poor Anby.
He does her best. All in the name of burger. At any rate. So, yeah, Star Rail is the one which has just done one event this time round, which is the which one is this like? This is kind of like a couple of other ones, but not quite exactly. But at any rate, it's just another combat-based event, but it was kind of trivial, so I didn't really think about it very much. I just went in there and double S'd everything with no effort whatsoever. So, yeah, it is what it is. They give you all of the higher characters that you need. I used higher characters for one of them. So I know that it's not difficult because I didn't use my own characters to do it. I just borrowed them and double S'd everything. So yeah, it's pretty trivial.
I had to redo the
it's
break
fun to see those fights again, but
I had to redo the break one quite a few times because I did not understand what I was doing wrong. Because I just could not get that meter built up with it. Because I have to use entirely trial characters for that one. I can bring none of my own. I have no break characters.
Break is pretty binary. The damage is either high or non-existent, so it's
Yeah,
not difficult to use, and it really doesn't matter whether your characters are perfectly built either, because the damage multipliers are so enormous.
yeah. I kept getting stuck at just barely getting gold with the break, and getting to the wave 6 of the final showdown, and just not barely missing the point threshold on the deer.
I didn't use the break. Break was by far my best buff that I got, and I didn't use it at all for Nikador. I just used
Oh,
my sort of mediocre buffs on all the others.
yeah. I didn't take the break buff for Nikador, but during the break challenge, I did not know how any of these characters operate because I don't have any of them. Like I have Gallagher and Harmony Trailblazer, but I don't use them because I don't have a break team. But I don't.
Gallagher's the real weak link there because his damage is so low. But he's basically just a break buffer. He's not a very good one either. He's not as good as Lingsha. He's passable. I used him for a very long time to reasonable effect, but he needs some help with his speed, basically.
But yeah, all the other ones other than the individual break challenge were free double S ranks. It's free primos.
I did fail to get double S on Nekador once because I tried to use break for it just to see if it would work, but it doesn't. It just doesn't. You can't use break against him because there's no break characters that play into his weaknesses, so your damage output is basically half of what it would be otherwise. There's not really any reason to do it.
The one that was conspicuous was the day Aglaya released. The Aglaya trial for that came out, and I'm like, oh,
Ultra conspicuous.
there.
It's like, lightning weakness. What shall I do? Whatever shall I do?
And then they give you the team that I was goofing around with in Simulated Universe.
Yeah, that one basically won itself. Like, I didn't need to really do anything. It pretty much automatic.
Like, Aglaya is the easiest character to micromanage in the world. You just get her as many turns as possible and be sure you don't cut the pet off so that you don't gimp yourself on energy regen, and you're good to go. That's it. And then she puts out the big numbers. Although I've only used her at the top tier in-game content, and on ones that I couldn't clear at all before. So the fact that I was able to clear them with Aglaya should tell you volumes. But it's hard to get a read for just how much bigger her damage is, because but she just is like the Energizer Bunny, or like DJ Khaled, just another one. And that's your whole game plan, is to have another one and keep going and keep her stack up, and then resummon the pet so that you keep the stacks at max, and then just keep on going.
Yep. I mean, I've weighed up pulling for her multiple times. It's something that I keep revisiting and thinking about again, but I'm like, not really sure it's a good idea. I don't have Woho, basically, is the long and short of it. My energy game would just be kind of weak. And there's not really an easy solution to that, because Woho has the dubious honor of being simultaneously a battery and a healer, whereas I can't do that with any character that I've got. So I'm just going to be running a little bit slow all the time on that approach.
Yeah,
and I definitely don't want to bring Tingyun as a battery, because Tingyun is notorious for one thing, and that's dying all the time.
Yeah, I'm considering trying to get a second Wowo for my next targeted pull, because her C1 is just too handy to have, not to have. Makes her so much more usable. Because so many fights I start with Wowo, they just get stalled in that turn you take to set up and get off the ground, because Wowo has to spend the turn putting her buff on and using a skill point in that first cycle. And anytime you fall behind with Wowo, you cannot use her to recover, because you have to skill every other turn. So she only is neutral. Can't use her to recover like you can a lot of other sustains in the game. So
Yeah, well, I mean, the only contexts I've ever used her in have always been events, and in events, oftentimes you're not taking enough damage, so you don't need to skill all the time. And if you don't need to skill all the time, she's freaking OP.
yeah, she's a fun healer. Wowo is probably, at the time she came out, I probably wouldn't have given her the universal debuff, the raw, ridiculous multi cleanses that she does, and her being an anti-debuff monster. But the rest of her kit is probably, she's one of the most good balanced healers out there. Still playable and good, and provides utility to the team without being busted.
Well, the reason why she got it is because those obnoxious robots with the fans that stun your dudes were ubiquitous. When she came out, you were getting stunned in every fight. So, because she came out when I started playing, so every enemy you dreaded seeing was that horrible thing with the fan.
Yeah, I had her pretty much from the gate, because after I seriously came back into the game, she was the first character I pulled. Because Biley wasn't doing it for me.
Not really. Anyway, that's a good jumping off point to segue into what people were actually talking about regarding Star Rail this week, which was the announcement that came out from Hoyo Lab on Developer Radio. They released a special announcement out of cycle with their normal announcement about their intention to make a bunch of adjustments going forward. Now, most of these adjustments are not likely to take, based on what they said, until about 3.2, because 3.1 is almost ready for prime time. So they can't really go back and make any major changes at this point. It would probably generate so many bugs that it would have to delay the whole thing. And if there's one thing that Chinese companies don't allow, it's content delays. Like they have the opposite approach to Blizzard's. Oh, it's a traditional Blizzard, that is. It's ready when it's ready. Of, if it's not ready, then you need to crunch harder until it is. Interestingly, they don't ever end up releasing anything that looks like, say, Skyrim, despite the fact that they always release on time. Presumably that's because they have somebody standing behind them with a gun until they get it right. Anyway, so the special announcement was basically concerning the major pieces of feedback that they got over Amphorius. Now, I kind of, in a way, I don't have much sympathy for Hoyo Lab because they dropped a lot of easy balls to catch in the recent patch, but I also do feel a bit of sympathy for them because most of the people who play Star Rail are complete clowns who want to have their cake and eat it at all times, and so will make consistently unreasonable demands at every conceivable juncture. But they have done a reasonable job of sifting the wheat from the chaff in this case, and so they're addressing a couple of main issues. The first of these is basically there are a lot of complaints, and there have been since the beginning of Star Rail, of people asking for a skip button. They want to skip all the story. Nobody wants to read the story in a JRPG. We want to hit the skip button and go straight to the combat, I guess, because that's apparently the main draw in a JRPG. I don't know what JRPGs these people have been playing, but they want a skip button. I don't agree with this. I think that they should be forced to suffer, because I say that they should suffer. But what they're doing instead of implementing a skip button is that they are basically going to have a conversation option before info dumps of let's just move along now, shall we, instead of telling me about the story. That's a reasonable middle ground, except that it's very easy to accidentally press button in Star Rail when you're in a conversation, and there is no way to replay anything. So that's my main reservation with that. But they are planning to insert these options into conversations which are about to lead into a lengthy digression on the backstory of the setting or whatever, where it's like, oh, well, we should probably just move along rather than please tell me more and more and more and more and more about the setting. I, of course, will be reading all of the content about the setting, but apparently other people don't want to. Similarly, situations which have conversation options that require you to flunk a particular scene. The one that they give an example of is where you have to try 3 idiotic solutions to Orynyx's trial before you can move on. They are going to add an extra option to just say that you're basically too dumb to solve the puzzle. Let's just move along. That is a comedic sequence, so I can sort of forgive people who have no sense of humor for wanting to just skip it. But yeah, they generally forced text is going to be reduced. They are going to add more options to just, the arrow button rather than the speech bubble so that you can mush along. And they also said that they are going to generally reduce the number of black screens with white text. This is something that people have been demanding forever because there are just way too many of them and they've been increasing in number, and it's just lazy, basically. There are occasional ones which kind of need to be there because they're just like something that says like at the same time elsewhere type of interludes. Those are like, oh well, that's reasonable, right? You're just underlining a scene change so that people don't think that this is taking place in the same location. But ones where it's just describing what is going on in the scene that you can't see are just stupid, and everybody hates them. So they said they're going to dial that back. Yeah.
Kirby opens the gate for you in this big grandiose thing happened in the background that's very significant according to what people were saying, but we get black screen, white text on black screen.
Yeah, lots of people brought that one up because they keep making a big deal about how this is one of the 3 triplets specialty is manipulation of space using these gates, except you've never seen her do it before. It always happens off screen, behind the black screen.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, lots of people have pointed that one out.
The abrupt cut afterwards to just, oh, we're here now. Just, oh.
Yeah, it kind of sticks out like a sore thumb. The next thing that they are addressing is they got a lot of feedback saying that basically the puzzle solving was too drawn out and detracted from the story because you spent an excessive amount of time trying to solve puzzles. Now, I don't agree with this at all either, because I think that the only way that you could have been bogged down in these is if you are functionally retarded, because there's nothing even remotely difficult. They even add shortcuts to be able to cross the distances between puzzles faster in various places. If you made a wrong turn and so you need to go back and do something again, there's almost always like an elevator to take you right there or something like that. Like, I don't think that there's anything particularly difficult about any of these puzzles, and they shouldn't take you long enough for this to be a problem. But apparently, most of the player base are lowest common denominator, and when they looked at a puzzle, they just get angry. So, yeah, they're going to basically simplify the puzzles, which is really obnoxious because I can't imagine how you can make them simpler.
If you go much simpler than the ones we had, why have the puzzles at all?
Yeah, it just ends up being pointless. So, yeah, I don't know what they're planning to do on that, such that they can feel like they actually inserted a puzzle, which can be called a puzzle. But, yeah, they also are planning on adding, like, alternative routes to solve a puzzle, like for the 4 soul forging statues, they're adding, like, just basically a combat option where you do a scrap instead of solving the puzzle, which, considering how trivial the combat is, I think that that's also just a general detraction from the game. But I think it would be kind of funny if they added the combat option, but just made the combat balls to the wall hard. So, oh, you want to skip the puzzle, do you? Okay, well, you can. But
hope you brought
see
adventure
if you can
in
win this first. Yeah, I hope you put your big boy pants on when you left the house this morning, because you're going to need them. But yeah, so there were heaps of people apparently whinging about that, and people also didn't like the allegedly complex map pathing. Like, what's complex about it? The entire thing is completely linear. There are a couple of digressions you can go on to get extra chests, but Yeah, I'm pretty concerned about that as well. If they actually got a lot of feedback, like I think I may simply have to accept the fact that I like this game, but I'm playing a game that's being designed for people who are retarded. Um, they are also planning to generally reduce the density of enemies, and I think that this is reasonable because the density of enemies is extremely high for anyone not using Acheron. Like, I started off not using Acheron, but after entering the third room, which had like 6 people within short distance of me roaming around looking to get in a scrap, I switched to Acheron and murdered them all.
Yeah, I
So,
eventually hit an Acheron breaking point.
yeah, so they're just generally reducing the density so that you aren't getting into combat every few steps. This has been a trend generally in JRPGs, though. Like back in the day of, say, Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy VIII, the random combat that was the standard at the time. The most prized thing that you could get was encounter reducing skill because it was such an obstruction to gameplay. And as time has gone on, the frequency of random combat usage in game has just generally decreased. There are still games that use it, but usually they will also have encounter down skills as well. But so this is just basically following along with a trend. So yeah, the on the plus side, basically, it means that they are taking feedback seriously. On the minus side, they are probably also going to end up taking feedback from people who are incredibly stupid. So hopefully that they can make good decisions about that and improve the game generally, rather than just doing what people say. I was in the process of reading some of these discussions. I ran across a knot of people who were basically like outrageously blackpilled about this because they held that Bangbu TV was really good and that just needed to be fixed a little bit to make it less tiresome, and
No.
that people actually would really like it if they did, and that this is just showing that Hoyo is lazy and they're just going to cut everything that people don't like. Like they cut out Bangbu TV because people complained about it. It was actually really good.
You found the underground community of masochists then.
I guess. But so yeah, it turns out that there are people who actually do have rose-tinted spectacles for Bangbu TV. Who'd have thunk it?
Who'd have thought?
Anyway, as a coda to all of this, they added a comment in the conclusion saying that they are intending to generally add richer combat gameplay, whatever that means, and challenge goals to the game. I think that that's a good thing because currently the only challenge goal in combat is within X turns. So if they can just sort of generally broaden the gameplay of the combat, they like for every sort of additional general feature that they add to combat in a turn-based JRPG, you dramatically lengthen the amount of time people are going to engage with it because it becomes different to what they are accustomed to in other games. It has its own thing. And it will also give you more levers to pull when in character design for characters you want to sell on the gacha. So adding richer combat gameplay could be a good thing, provided that they do it in a coherent and competent way instead of just adding more retarded goals to meet within X number of turns. The other thing that they mentioned in the closing was that they are planning on easing what they refer to as the difficulty deploying older characters on the battlefield by strengthening them. So this is a major departure from their conventional philosophy, which is to not ever tamper with older characters at all. There are good reasons not to make older characters more powerful. One of them is Bennett, and one of them is Fischl, and one of them is Xingqiu, and one of them is Sucrose, and one of them is Shangling, and one of them is Baidu, and yeah, all of these old characters that are still in the current meta, despite Hoyo's best ability to try and power creep them out of relevance. Which, I mean, in some sense is a good thing, but in another sense has really dramatically ring-fenced their ability to create new designs for 4-star characters. So yeah, from the commercial side, you don't generally want to make old characters too powerful lest they reduce the appeal of newer characters. Although I feel like the new and shiny is always going to be generally kind of appealing. But nobody asked the characters to be more powerful than the newest shiny. They just don't want to do 3,000 damage with their E6 E6 S6 blade, E6 S5 blade. I've seen people showing off their E6 S5 blade actually, and just doing embarrassingly low amounts of damage. Like the poor bastard, like he really fell into a crevice in design to begin with, and it has not aged well with his multipliers being so low to begin with.
Yeah, he's
But
like he was designed while the Genshin team was working on Fontaine, and they had the bright idea, oh, HP manipulation, we could do that, and then they just forgot.
I mean that I think as a concept is likely to come back though. But yeah, so there's been a lot of people analyzing in fine detail what was actually said here in the original Chinese, and the popular opinion going around is that the phrasing that they use has traditionally not been applied in conjunction to signature light cones or eidolons, but rather to direct character kits themselves. So it sounds like, based on people's analysis of what they said, that they are planning on just straight up buffing characters, not just releasing other characters to make them more powerful, but actually directly making the E0, S0 version of a character stronger as part of their base kit, which is really the best way to go if you want to make something appealing to a casual pull. Like, ideally, you want to be in a position where, like, Sele goes up on the banner next cycle, right? Next patch cycle. And there are going to be people who are like casually, yeah, I liked Sele, I guess I'll pull her. Because I can just use her for fun. You can't use Sele for fun right now because her damage is so low. It's been creeped viciously. But her kit is all still fine. The only thing that really needs to happen is she needs a couple of tweaks to her core mechanic to make it able to actually trigger off itself, as opposed to only triggering once and then never again. And she also needs a few tweaks to her multipliers just to make them sort of more contemporary. It would not take very much. I would probably tweak her her ability to advance her action first, and then just see how much damage she does if she's allowed to go hog wild, and then just bring the actual output sort of like to within 10% of what you would expect from a more contemporary character from, say, a whole 5 patches later or something, just to make sure that there's at least sort of usability parity there. Because currently her problem is that she can't output damage, and outputting damage is the only thing that she can do. And there's an interesting niche for a character like Sele as well. Like, a hunt character that can behave like an erudition character is basically what people have in mind. Because she will attack, and if she kills a mini creep, then advance action can kill another mini creep, advance action. She just gets stronger, snowballing like that, and then she grinds to a halt as soon as something doesn't die the moment she touches it. That's basically the way she works, and that was fine before at the HP levels that were previously in the game, because she was sort of well calibrated for that. But nowadays she can't kill a creep, so she never procs her ability at all. And if she does by some miracle kill one because she's under the effect of a bajillion buffs, then she will get to kill one other creep and then grind to a halt again until the next time her turn comes around. So yeah, there's lots of issues that have emerged with her relatively simple kit in the longer view of things. And there are a lot of people out there carrying E6 S5 Sele that spent $2,000 on her because she was just so powerful at launch. Yeah, that didn't age well. But yeah, it's kind of hopeful. Based on what's coming out of the closed beta leaks, it seems like there's also sort of an active effort to try and avoid power scaling too quickly. But some of the reports are that their approach is a little bit erratic and almost knee-jerk in its character, almost as though the directive to get power creep under control sort of washed rapidly through their development structure, and the correct approach hasn't been settled. But yeah, it's certainly something that I would like to see happen. I think that I would more prefer to see a much greater focus on 4 stars, though, because I prefer the approach where 4 stars are the mainstay, with 5 stars being the luxury approach, rather than 5 stars dramatically outnumbering 4 stars by a humongous margin, and 4 stars being functionally useless because they're terrified of making them too strong. Like, I think a game probably can't sustain too many Bennetts, but I think a game can probably quite handily sustain quite a number of Sucroses and Officials and Baidus and characters like that.
Yeah,
And I think that they really should go in that direction. Just make the 4 stars have so much clout that people feel comfortable exploring those strategic options, so that it lights up potential further premium options for them. If people enjoy like follow-up attack using Mozza, then they are much more likely to pull Fei Xiao as the premium option if they just like follow-up attack. It can actually work that way. Mozza being good doesn't necessarily take away from Fei Xiao pulls, because Fei Xiao is always going to be more powerful. So yeah, it's a fine balancing act, but I think it's better to make the attempt than to just look cynical to everybody.
yeah. And I mentioned this before. Every Hoyo game seems to have its own unique problem with 4 stars. But Star Rail's problem that drives me the most nuts with 4 stars, because I still have to use them on teams quite regularly, is if you run one, you already have to invest all of its stat points into offense to make it able to function as a filler slot for an archetype you may or may not have all the pieces for.
Well, there's one exception, which is Pella.
Yeah, Pella.
Like I've built my Pella fully for HP and defense, and so she doesn't die.
Yeah.
She doesn't contribute anything else except her debuffs, but that's what I need her for.
Yeah, I use Pella for the same way. But you have the Gwenhyphen problem, where Gwenhyphen does okay damage. It's not great. The premium option will always be better. But she's going to fold like a wet paper towel the second anything looks at her funny.
Yeah, I don't think that there's actually a compelling reason to make 4 stars less durable than 5 stars, because the showstopper for 5 star characters is always going to be what they can output into a fight. It's not going to be that they could take a punch. That might apply to some preservation characters, like Fu Xuan's ability to take a punch is kind of important, but what she brings to the table is not her ability to take the punch so much as her ability to spread damage across the group and to take a certain amount of it on herself. For every other character in the game not named Fu Xuan, it doesn't matter if they have relative parity in HP. That said, they are trying some interesting things. The current design in closed beta for my day is that he's going to be an HP manipulator, a lot like Blade, but according to the stats he's currently got in closed beta, he's got like a half to a third of the base defense that every other character in the game has, but an HP pool the size of a small planet. So he takes a huge amount of damage, and that's how he charges his resource, is by having lots of health, very little defense, being extremely fragile in terms of your health going up and down, extremely volatile, but uses that to generate resources. And he's got a special ability that if he is in his like hardcore berserker state, where he does most of his damage, his burst phase, at the time his HP hits 0, he will just drop out of damage phase and be revived at 50% health, basically. So basically he's ultra fragile and ultra volatile, but he's got a safety net for that, and everything about him is basically they're trying again at being the Fontaine character in Star Rail. So it's not like they've never thought about character durability. I think that they're just caught in the sort of like almost a default state of mind that all 4-star characters, obviously they must have 80% of the stats of a 5-star character. That's just the way it is. I just don't think that it's necessary that it's that way. I think it's just like every gacha seems to do that automatically. I don't think I've ever seen one that doesn't.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's necessary. It really isn't, especially when there's so little variance between characters' hit points in the main. Like my Fushuen has a hair under 10,000 HP base, but I couldn't tell you how much health any of the rest of my characters have because it's all the same, plus or minus 500 here or there.
Depends on what they rolled on the gear.
Yeah, and for most characters, other than preservation ones and some healers, you're not going to be fishing for HP. Unless you are still Sparkle. In which case HP just seems to come out of every orifice. But yeah, I think that there's not really any reason for that. I think that they can afford to have their durability increased to the level of a 5-star so that they become a going concern in a team, as opposed to an incredibly volatile asset that could just lose all its value at any second. I think that if you want people to like those characters and have those characters become a promotional engine for their inevitable premium 5-star version, you need people to be able to use them. Although it didn't seem to hurt our boy Buttervision all that much.
What about our boy Vertigo?
Well, he was not very usable, but he still got lots of people to pull on his 5-star version.
Oh, yeah.
They just really like Buttervision.
Can't unhear it after somebody pointed it out the first time.
Yeah, I know. I can't
There's a super persistent rumor that he's going to get yet another version of himself
We don't need
sometime during 3.x. So they apparently somebody at Hoyo thinks that what the world needs is more Buttervision.
Don't need more Buttervision.
There's going to be an event involving Buttervision at some point. You watch.
Well, I mean, that's only applicable to the EN audience with their trash voice actors.
Yes.
Life is
Except for Dr. Ratio, who's actually good.
But he's not a professional voice actor.
Oh, he is.
Yeah,
He's just independent.
Well, he's a small timer who probably does it because he likes doing it, as opposed to wanting to become a professional voice actor as part of the voice actor community. SAG-AFTRA, blah, 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 blah.
I watched him one time show up in a one of the VA like little events they were doing that was just them hanging out as voice actors and trying to, not an official promotion, but just like doing stuff together. And he showed up for a few minutes and sounded incredibly uncomfortable. Like he did not want to be a part of this.
Well, he probably doesn't have Reddit brain, which is what most of the others seem to have. But yeah, everybody loves Dr. Ratio, the character. Not so many people love Dr. Ratio, the in-game character, because he got power crept so bad. And unfortunately, he's probably not going to be top of the list for improvements. Looking back at who is going to be improved, I think that it would be wise for them to improve the standard 5 stars so that people don't feel so horrifically trolled every time they lose a 50-50. Basically, the only one that people are happy to see usually is Himiko. There are actually some people who are happy to see Clara because they're just devoted to playing Clara counter teams, because, well, they're kind of fun to play if you can get them to work. But yeah, most of Clara's fans happen to be of a disposition much like her fans on Bellabog, if you happened to run into those guys.
At least they tried to send her shoes.
They did. They tried. Shoes.
How that girl does not have frostbitten toes, I'll never know.
Have you, Fern? You have never had Clara in your party, have you?
I picked up Clara off a freebie pickup not long ago, but I've never actually used her beyond the trials.
Oh no. Okay.
I know she throws her robot friend and everything.
No, that's not it. It's the voice line.
I have never heard her English voice actor except that one time that you showed me a clip of it.
Is it as bad as Buttervision?
It's worse.
Oh dear.
No,
Yeah,
this is
easily the
fine.
worst voice
Clara's English voice actors just does not match the character.
Just wait until Mr. Farog.
Poor Svarog.
The painful trend that I see every time anybody's discussing Clara online on Twitter is that as soon as somebody realizes the discussion has turned to being about Clara, they'll start posting pictures of Gilgamesh killing Ilya.
But why? That's just mean.
Yeah, I think that it would be wise of them to give a bit of a makeover to some of those older characters, because people are usually happy to see Himiko because Himiko has practical applications, especially if you don't have a fully mature independent break team. And
She
having
is
more
also
characters,
she's also up there in the waifu rankings.
well, she's also a Himiko face, and Himiko in Honkai Impact Third, there are multiple Himikos that meet sticky ends, and so
Oh dear.
everybody is hoping that this one will escape the curse. But yeah, she's one that people are happy to see. I have never pulled her on the gacha except for when I pulled her as my first character. Every other character that I pulled, I think I pulled 2 Bailus, 4 Jeopards, and 2 Yanqings, and 1 Welt. No, maybe 2 Welts now. Yeah, I've never gotten Clara at all. I've never gotten Himiko apart from the very first pull where they guarantee you one. I use her still, not always, but sometimes on Pure Fiction if the elements support it. If I want to do AoE follow-up. She's also very compatible with Break because her mechanics center around Break. She's sort of a happy accident of design where she was designed to be follow-up, but because they built her mechanics around Break, she turned into Break compatible when Break became a thing. So yeah, she's definitely a solid character, much more solid than any of the others. Some of them are just Yanqing's kit needs an overhaul to make it usable because it's not. Bailu would be perfectly usable if they tuned her numbers up a little and gave her a cleanse. The biggest problem with Bailu is that there's no cleanse. They need to make sure that she's not skill point in the toilet and allow her to cleanse debuffs, and then she'll become a perfectly serviceable baseline for healers. So everybody who needs a healer who pulls her can use her as a healer instead of Natasha being better, who everybody gets.
Natasha's just such a good one-size-fits-all healer.
She can't do anything but heal, and that's her weakness. But Bailu also can't do anything but heal.
Waste of a
And she
perfectly
can't
good
cleanse
grenade
either.
launcher.
And in addition to not being able to cleanse, Bailu is also incredibly skill point negative.
Yeah, there's no reason for that. Like, if you're going to contribute nothing but healing to the group, there's no reason to bleed you dry of skill points in the process. So yeah, that she desperately needs help. I think Welt needs help as well, simply because there's no role for him at all. There was a brief period where he was used as a semi-tank. There was a style of tanking that people would do by cranking Welt's speed through the roof and then just having him constantly apply slow so much that the fight would be over before the enemy could do enough damage to kill you. And since he's a damage dealer in the meantime, he was still dealing out personal damage. Unfortunately, his damage has sagged. The slow mechanic is not effective enough to allow him to tank. Generally speaking, he doesn't actually have a niche to fill or a role to play. And so he basically, his entire kit needs to be overhauled in order to make him relevant. I think that it would be wise of them to do so just to reduce the sort of ill will that 50/50s naturally generate. Because he most of them are not going to get better with Eidolons either. Like, you can pile as many Eidolons as you want on Yanqing and he won't work. You can pile as many Eidolons on Jeopard, he's not going to metamorphose into Aventurine even at E6. Like, these are not things that can happen. So yeah, I think that they do need some help. But I think it's also unlikely that they actually will. I think that we're more likely to see Blade get an overhaul. We're likely to see Silverwolf get an overhaul. We might see a few of the others. And Baiba Lune, they might dress him up a little bit since he's a major character. But if they really are producing a new Don Hung, then they probably won't. He'll probably get passed over as well. Sparkle might need a little bit of help if they want to broaden her appeal, but I think that building a Sparkle and archetype to live in would probably be a better approach there. But yeah, so there's a lot of venue for them to make improvements. I just hope they make intelligent ones.
They're gonna make
And
a
they don't
5-star
listen to-
Sampo that synergizes with Sparkle.
Well, I mean, you could. Sampo, according to Sampo, does not like Sparkle, and Sparkle abuses Sampo on the regular.
They're perfect for a team together then.
Like the whole point of the crossover between Honkai Impact 3rd and Star Rail was Sparkle scapegoating what's his name?
Sampo?
Mr. Coldfeet. Sampo. I don't know why the name just dropped out of my head immediately. Sparkle scapegoating Sampo so that she could go around being first heroic and then later villainous while pinning the blame for everything on Sampo. Like that was, and just because she felt like it, because it seemed fun. So yeah, they don't get along all that well. But yeah, I mean, Dot is definitely coming back as an archetype. There has always been in the 3.x closed beta a slot which was designated for the new Dot person. It's moved from character to character over time, and it's not going to be deployed before 3.3 at the earliest, probably. I would say, based on the timings. So there's a lot of time for that to be overhauled. Considering Triby's kit has just been dramatically altered with like 1 week out from their preview stream, and Castora's kit has been burnt to the ground and rebuilt just this week past, even though she's supposed to be deployed in 3.2. There's a lot of room for things to change. But the current Dot kit, according to the people who are leaking, is that it's currently would power creep both Kafka and Black Swan simultaneously if it came out today. So I think Kafka could probably also benefit from some buffs, actually. I think that she really should be established as the tentpole of the Dot archetype. Black Swan could probably help it. I don't think you would need to do much to Black Swan to make her work. You would just need to make her ult better so that it froze Dot generation in place for a lot longer. But yeah, they haven't abandoned Dot. Dot is still on the workbench.
It's just been not done forever.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure why they chose to abandon it. I think the Acheron was probably the main role in that. Like the splash that Acheron made when she landed in the meta pool was so great that they couldn't attend to a completely different archetype for a set of characters that were no longer front and center.
Yeah, especially because she interacted with Dot Team.
Yeah, because you could basically reappropriate those. Like Black Swan is a main fixture on my Acheron team as the subordinate DPS because she applies defense shred and stuff as well.
The obligatory debuffer.
Yeah, she's basically the apply more debuffs person. Unfortunately, she's quite skill point negative, although she doesn't have to be. She can still work okay if you're using her basic attack, which is why she's got a position there. But she's basically my replacement Gwynaifen. Anyway, that's that.
Yep. And we are over time again.
You don't want to talk about World of Warcraft housing?
No, not really.
So the only thing of relevance in this is they took a pot shot at Final Fantasy 14.
It's honestly, it's a
could do with a bit of a buff up, admittedly.
It's a well earned shot. Like in the terms of the fact that Final Fantasy 14 has earned it, not that Blizzard has earned the right to take pot shots at anybody. Like Blizzard has shown conclusively that they do not know how to do housing by means of their garrisons. So
yes,
if the only thing that they learn is to do everything differently, they're on a good starting point.
It's a step in the right direction.
But if FF14 has definitely definitely deserved to be taken pot shots at by this sort of persistent, massive barrier to entry of having the dosh and winning a lottery.
Yeah.
For a lot of people, that's just insurmountable, and there's heaps of people exploiting the system, and Square Enix does not give a toss. And I don't really see any reason why it should remain this way. probably the excuse that they use internally is that there's no way to tear the system down at present without destroying everybody's houses in the process. That would be my guess.
Yeah, hang on.
I don't think it needs to be that way though. I really don't think it does. You could just massively liberalize the lottery system and then just restrict the number of houses to paying accounts and it would be fine.
Yeah, the other issue is because of the way the neighborhoods are set up, you losing your house after being inactive for 2 months effectively acts as a very strong chain to those of us that have bought a house to unsubbing.
Yeah.
It is a huge deterrent because we'll
Yeah,
lose the
like
house.
if you were to let your house lapse, I would probably just cancel my sub right then. Because I don't have hardly anything in my house, and I'm only keeping the sub against the day that I actually have time to do work on my house in Final Fantasy. But that's getting less and less likely based on the fact that they started promotion of their new chapter of the MSQ by promoting the presence of Work Lamart this week.
Did you see the key art for 7.2 with
I have
Wuklamat and having the stupid, ugly drawn PogChamp face?
Could we
What?
could we not?
I don't have
What?
it handy. I'll have to find it later. But yeah, basically, the new key art is hideous.
Yeah,
I
I
haven't-
get at
I
this
haven't
point they're
seen it
basically
around.
stuck with her, but
I don't think they are. Where there's a will, there's a way, and they need to cough up some will at this point.
they really do.
Yeah,
I'm
this
just
is
gonna cheese this.
this patch.
Yeah.
I think is the deployment of. I don't know if it's coming right away or at a midpoint or when. But this is the patch where the new field operation will come. I think
I
it's
thought this was the one where the new diadem was coming.
might be.
Oh no, this is field operation Occult Crescent.
Okay, might be worth a look. As long as Lamart's not involved.
Well, this is their chance to win points back. Like
Yes.
they're the biggest missing point in Walker was a area in current content where we had access to our full kit. We could just play the video game.
Like
Yep.
if they can drag Aristeel back in to engaging with it properly, then they will probably drag me back in by proxy. But I don't think that even that being good will be enough to drag me in by myself if it doesn't meet RE standards.
Yeah,
Because I want to play with friends. That's what it comes down to.
yeah, we are going to have to. If they're going to have to really get a solid home run on this one.
Yeah.
I mean,
Give us a good hook.
give me an interesting system to play around in with a lot of potential depth to it. Give me a
Basically,
do Baja
this
again.
needs to be. Yeah, this needs to be to Bosja as Bosja was to Eureka.
Well, they don't even need to improve it that much. They just need to. There was a point where I would say it just needs to be Baja again.
I would be happy with a slightly improved Bosja.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping for. This is their
Yeah.
opportunity. If they drop the ball here, we're looking at that's it.
Yeah,
Why are they promoting?
that'll probably be it till the next expansion.
They're promoting Frontline Secure as well.
Oh, because they
Yeah.
booted it out of the rotation to get completely reworked because nobody liked it.
They just. I wonder what they actually did because isn't that the one that's like basically PVE?
That's the one that's that was
You just
AB.
fight the big thing in the center or whatever.
That was AB. You ran around and you capped the bases, the 6 bases around it, and the teams would fight to cap those. And there'd be a big objective in the middle every so often. You'd all go together and run each other over for. The problem was it was most of the game didn't play itself, and whoever got the first couple of middle ones was the team that was going to win.
Yeah. All right, there we go.
Yeah. It looks like they had their big producers letter thing, and they promoted a bunch of stuff, but I need proof that it's compelling,
Yeah.
and what I'm being shown instead is Work Lamart.
Yeah,
And
the Walk Lamart is the opposite of what people want to see.
I'm
yeah, and I posted a snippet from my phone when I was looking at it to Ari. I don't know if you looked at it at all.
depends on when you send it to me. I think I recall something like that. I don't think I said anything to you about it.
It was just the top. I just had my phone take a screenshot that scrolled down automatically, and it just so it captured the top replies. And so the first one it says, "I love waiting 4 months for Luke Wamat." The next one was, "Got it. Continue to hit escape and skip the cutscenes. I miss when FF14 was a story we all loved and enjoyed." Third one, "Yeah, no. If I have to deal with even more Work Lamart, I'm genuinely unsubbing until Dawn Trail is done."
Yeah,
The next one, I won't say that this add-on is bad because it isn't, but it's definitely in last place for me. I just played through the story and now I'll wait for the next expansion. Never had that before. Honestly, don't care. On hiatus until I can buy a story skip to get past Dawn Trail. This worked with Ardbert because Ardbert was a hero. He was cool. He was kind. He was actually him. How dare Elizabeth sully Ardbert's memory? Not working for Sveen and whoever this is. Sorry.
Fiend.
I haven't done the story since I finished Dawn Trail when it came out, and this is also the first time I don't care looking at spoilers. What happened? Was Ishikawa your only talented writer?
Yes.
So these are the top comments that just happened to be there. I just scrolled automatically. I didn't select them. I just scrolled down the list. So
I can imagine it's not a whole lot better on the JP side either.
And the JP
probably
side,
worse because
yeah,
they don't have the restraint of woke culture to prevent you criticizing the character.
yeah. The JP side, according to the farms, is way worse. They are not happy. So and
Just
Wuklamot is mocked relentlessly
Get
on
rid
JP
of
side.
Walk Lamart.
Lease her
Stage steal,
already,
hussy.
please. Hurry up and lease her to her palace.
Yes, she can be locked in a giant stone chamber for the rest of time.
I mean, you could also like just dramatically kill her and put her brother in charge or something. Like, I don't know. I don't care what happens to her.
Say that timeline's invalid. We're going to tell the story properly now with Kryl.
No. Here's what we need to do. They need to have Wuklamot F up in such a colossal and fantastic way that she becomes a villain we get to take all of our crap out on as the player. I want to beat her butt into the pavement.
Sadly,
They would
that's
never do that.
not going to
She's
happen.
definitely somebody's pet. That's why she is the way she is. She's somebody's pet. And as long
She
as
is a
that
cat.
person is working there, that there is nothing bad will ever happen to Work Lamart. If anything, they'll remove her from the story by having her make some potted, arbitrary, heroic sacrifice for some grand scheme.
Yeah, that's
Nobody will address the fact that that's an utterly irresponsible thing for a leader to do when you've got a country to run. But yeah.
Yeah, that's I don't. You're losing me on Wook. Man, I was so mad at 7.1. Like the first few minutes of the story. Yeah, that's a good. Okay, if you're gonna salvage it, that's the way to go. Yeah, we can look at the repercussions of time displaced people coming back to draw. Okay, yeah, we can actually build some identity for the people here and how they act and stuff. This looks like a Wuklamot busts in the door. Have you heard about counseling?
Yeah. Actually, someone's done a lot of the math on basically how the story is constructed, and Wuklamart not only gets the most mentions,
Her name.
she gets all the lines, and it's not even close.
She has like more than double the next person or something like that.
Yeah.
She's just yapping constantly.
She is also the single most uttered phrase.
Yeah, some variation
Yes, because it's the Poochie thing, right? It's like Poochie should always be on screen, and anytime Poochie is not on screen, everybody should be asking, "Where's Poochie?"
Yes. Oh, she walked 10 meters away and got kidnapped. Oh.
I still hold that entire sequence.
It's so stupid.
It is a crowning moment of retardation.
It
Like-
is. It's so bad.
Like, I play my warrior light as a bit of a dunderhead, but she would not be this dumb.
The best moment of that story was when you can actually tell her father, no, she cannot wear the crown.
I might have forgiven it if when they're like, we should probably go and rescue her. You're like, do we have to?
Yeah. There's just, even if you completely discount all the woke bits, there's just so much wrong with Wooklamart.
Yeah. The bigger problem with Wooklamot in English is the fact that their voice actor, it falls under the alphabet umbrella, and so you just can't criticize the character, otherwise people get incredibly defensive and assume you're making a commentary about alphabet, which we do have commentary on, and it is not good commentary. However,
I have an abundance of hostile commentary on that, but that's not what we're discussing right now.
That is
unlike a lot
way
of
down the
people,
list of issues.
I do, unlike a lot of people, have a lot of hostile commentary to make about her performance because it's shite. And I
Yeah.
don't care how many people say, oh, it's just the director, or, oh, no, it's not, it's fine, you're just too fussy, or
The
anything like
director
that. No,
certainly
no.
didn't help, but that wasn't 100% of the problem.
The writing is bad, the directing is bad, and the voice acting is bad. All of these things can be bad simultaneously. There doesn't just have to be one that drives all the others. They can all be bad.
The amount of hoops these people jump through in their mental gymnastics to try and excuse Wooklamot's voice actor because of identity politics for the terrible performance they put.
Yeah. But yeah, again, ignore the performance. The writing's bad.
Yeah,
That's all we need to know. The writing is terrible.
The concept of the story is bad from the point of the outline. You should have realized this ain't gonna work. We need to do something else. You didn't.
Yeah.
From a character's perspective, you should have been like, you think we got Wooklamot a bit too integral to the main plot? We got this entire other cast of characters that people are already invested in. They might want to see some. No, not more Wooklamot. Should have been a red flag. You know, whole lot of stuff with Wook. But
yeah, it's like it must have been for Yoshi P. Like every time I go away on a holiday or like have a public holiday day off, and then I come back to the lab the following day, and everything is on fire, and everything was wrong in my absence, and it's like, this is impossible for me to clean up. How did you guys manage to screw this many things up in such a short amount of time?
yeah, it's that office meme where the dude walks in with the pizzas and the office is on fire.
Yeah.
I think it's from Community. But yeah, it's ridiculous. But
yeah.
there's no way at this point, after this much water under the bridge, there is no way in hell that they can claim that they didn't know. They have heard all the feedback now. If they follow this line, regardless of that, it means that they don't care about the feedback. End of story.
Yeah, I do not know what's going on with the MSQ development, and at this for the rest of Dawn Trail, pretty much I've written it off. What I do care about, and what you have left Final Fantasy, is the gameplay side of things. I can poke my head back in the video game and enjoy my time in a field exploration zone. If you cock this up, that's it. Like, I cannot justify my sub anymore to keep my house. I was giving you until now. And if this is a catastrophe, that's the end. And it being a catastrophe is not outside of play right now. They made a whole lot of bad decisions all throughout this expansion and through a good chunk of Endwalker. And you've been trading on the goodwill of the expansions up before then, and the hope that when Yoshi P came back from working on 16, you'd be able to iron some of these out. You're able to start moving back in the right direction with the field operation, and if I don't see it, we're gonna have words on this show, and you're gonna lose my money.
You're gonna arrive at the field zone, and it's gonna start doing like the flyby camera view of the zone, and Smile is gonna start playing in the background.
And then you're just gonna see a
Why?
Wooklamot's giant head jump in front of the camera.
Just no. Go away.
Someone there must have told them that song was shite. had to be mentioned to somebody.
I mean, the tinkly background version is fine as just filler background music, but the vocal, oh no, the vocal.
It does.
Well, I don't think I've ever seen anybody seriously attempt to defend it either. It doesn't have supporters.
It doesn't, no.
It has a few people that I saw in the very early days. The Super White Knights try to make token attempts at it, and they gave up almost immediately. But yeah, it's not good. So I will be dipping my toe. I'll dip my toes in it once I can confirm the field operation is released, and I will report back from the trenches. I'll need to firmly fasten my hard hat going back because I'm expecting a disaster at this point.
Yeah,
But
I want to
go
Wick Lamart again.
Yeah, I want to like Final Fantasy. I really do, but as long as they keep banging the Wooklamut drum, it's just no. We don't care about this character. She's not a good character. Go away.
They need to cut their losses. People don't like her. It's as simple as that. And they know people don't like her. There's no way that they don't.
Yeah, like I don't care. I know the writer of Wooklamut has put out some okay stories in the past in Final Fantasy. I know he was in charge of the previous
All the stories.
Yeah, I know he was in charge of the previous Baja story. I know he was the one that did the. I think he was the one that did the healer role quest in Shadowbringers, but he dropped the ball on this so bad. Fire him. There are other good writers. Go find one of them. That's how bad it is. You fire somebody over this.
He's bad. Bad.
So yeah, that's on the docket for the future. I don't know when this venture in will be because it will need to be at a time I'm able to fully mentally armor myself and prepare for the worst. But I'll make an attempt to check out the field zone and see how bad it is because I would like to. As I've said before, gacha games are not my natural home. It does not feel natural using them to fill the MMO slot. And I would much rather have a MMO fill that slot, even one that I'm slightly dissatisfied with its story. If it was at least doing the gameplay part of its gameplay right that I could engage with, I could do that in the meantime. But right now, Final Fantasy has just dropped the ball on everything with Dawn Trail. That there is no spot for me to grab on and engage.
All right, let's wrap up then, shall we?
Yeah. All right. Email topic.
So,
what's up?
Yep. Also, as a quick cap, I finished Lamplight Festival, and then I think the game just tangented into a randomless associated Liyue quest because I had Cloud Retaining just chewing the scenery at me for a bit at the end.
Cloud Retainer do that.
She does that.
Feature in the story.
Yeah, she has a scene at the very end.
Yeah.
It's not in Liyue, it's on the mountain, but she does.
Yeah, that's specifically talking about Hu Tao, so you can tell it's part of the same story.
Yeah. But the bit where she's chewing the scenery is that she just wants a piece of paper and that's it.
Yeah, I don't think that was part of the lantern, right?
So yeah, that was a very satisfying ending to that story. It really worked well.
Yeah, got to meet Daddy.
Got to meet Daddy.
So, all right, folks. Email topic of the week is whatever the heck you want to write me about because I don't have anything for you. If you're still playing Final Fantasy, how have things been in the meantime? Because I've been totally out of the loop, and I will be sticking my nose in sometime in the coming months to experience the new field zone. So, yeah, there you go. You can send in something about that. All right, folks. Closing comments before I get us out of here.
Well, next week I'll probably be talking about VR, hopefully.
Yay!
I don't know if I can face the reality of another week of slaving away at work because I don't have any holiday this time, and I didn't get any sleep this week, and I don't know what I'm gonna do. Unfortunately, everything went wrong this week, but maybe next week will be better.
Hope so.
All right, folks. We'll see you.